Yeah, good afternoon, viewers. Today in the studio we have our friend Alphonse Were. Alphonse Were is a labor policy consultant and is also an aspiring leader in our nation. He is also a practicing Christian by faith. He's here to help us have some insights on the topic politics and faith. If you are in Kenya, you realize that politics and faith are happening concurrently. Yeah, in fact, just every Sunday you will witness that majority of politicians trickle in our churches for worship, but also they have a moment to practice their politics. That means that these two things may be intertwined or they may not be intertwined. We want to have a discussion over the same and no, because at some point we normally say we separate state with religion. At some point we recognize that we are both political beings and spiritual beings. So how do we handle the two so that we don't lose focus? Above all, we want to use faith to advance our leadership agenda. We also want to use our leadership positions also to advance the kingdom agenda. So there are two sides of the same coin, maybe. I don't know. Alphonse, you're welcome to the studio and let's have this conversation. Kenyans, you're welcome to ask questions, make your own contribution towards the same topic. Thank you. Let me give Alphonse an opportunity to introduce himself and just make his submission. Unfortunately, we have lost him. Yeah, but I was saying that faith and politics are they two sides of the same coin, or they need to be separated completely? Do we compartmentalize life and say that I'm a political being, I'm a spiritual being, or a life should be integral? All parts of you should be lived together. Alphonse, what do you think?
First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me to your studio and your session. And I hope that our conversation today will just advance that which each one of us has some information so that we co-share and build one another in this space. But I want to say that I think our problem, and I'm starting with the problem, is our problem is a problem of duality. Problem of if it's not a yes, then it can only be a no. If it's not a no, it can only be a yes. If it's not a male, it can only be a female. That duality, that dichotomy, that making things look extremely simple in life. So that if you're a politician, then you're not a human being. So that your life is supposed to be politics alone. If you're a Christian, for example, if you're a Muslim, if you are a Hindu, then that is supposed to be you. But the truth of the matter in life is that no one person is one, two, or three things alone. Everybody is expected to be complete in each and every sphere of life. And therefore, as we are discussing matters faith and politics, we must come from a point of view where we understand what is the underpinning belief, what is the origin, what is the bedrock of politics, what is politics in simple layman's terms, and therefore, with that understanding, is that related in any way to religion? And then what is religion or faith in simple and in layman's term, and is that related to politics? I think to me that basic understanding, like understanding addition of 1 + 1 or 2 + 2, makes us understand that actually the concept that we're dealing with might be more complex or might be more huge than how much we have simplified it. And I want to give an example before I delve deeper, is that as Alphonse, I've been going to church, and nobody has had a problem with that. I stand before the church congregation, and I make announcements, I make presentations. Let's say I'm the one preaching that Sunday, I'm the one singing, I'm the one playing the keyboard. Yeah, I'm the one inviting visitors to our church. Then everybody else finds that I'm okay doing that, and I'm a Christian. But then the day I declare my interest to be elected in politics, then now I'm considered a politician, and some people now think I should not be standing on the same pulpit, yeah, or I have actually downgraded my ability to stand on the same pulpit. Yet the truth of the matter is that my involvement in politics is an aspect of life, different from my involvement in school, if I was going to school, different from my involvement in our family affairs, different from my involvement in church affairs. But then all these involvements are integral in making me complete in this society. So I think I want us to come to a point where we need to understand that every human being has more than 1, 2, or 3 aspects of their life which should be running concurrently. Now, back to politics. I want to say it's our civic duty. It's our noble civic duty to participate in politics. Now, in the basic participation that everybody does not contest is going to vote. So that all of us are expected to vote. And by voting, you're already participating in politics. But also we have other aspects of participation in politics. One of them is that you participate in politics through financing aspirants or candidates. You're financing political parties or joining those political parties and participating in political party affairs so that you strengthen the political parties from within. As they come up with ideas, you generate the ideas that are good for development of the society. Also, we can participate in politics by vying for political positions and posts. And lastly, we participate in political positions by generating ideas in favor or in criticism of political discourse to make with an intention of making them better. So that if things are happening through a political process and we need our input so that that input will affect our children, ourselves, our society at the time we are in and the time to come, then if we don't participate, then we are simply saying that those who are doing it against our interest are the ones who will take the predominance. And therefore, to me, participation in politics is integral. But what is this politics? So that we discuss something that we understand. My understanding of politics is exercise of power, of control, distribution, and access to resources. So at the center of politics is resources. And we're talking of resources that we require, 1, for survival, 2, for good and what we call for better living. Let me put it that way: for better living, resources required for better living. So that if we need water, then politics will help us either have access to bad water, have distribution, bad or good distribution to that water, have access to good water or quality water, and have sufficiency of that water well utilized so that we are all enjoying the availability of water, not having a few people getting quality water and the rest of the society or population hardly having enough water for even domestic consumption. So if water was a resource, and it is a resource, then politics will help us know how to store that water, how to access that water, how to distribute that water. Now, if we don't get involved into politics and allow a few people amongst us to be participating in politics, then they can say that this water that comes from point A will not reach downstream or will not reach people from this point, so that we will divert that water, so that the resources that are required for storage will only be put in point A to serve people in residence A, B, and C only. In that case, the rest of the population, when now they start lacking water, they'll start blaming the politicians who are allocating this water only to be available to points A, B, and C. But if they participated in the process, they would have known that that politics will help them actually distribute the water to all the points A to Z in that locality. You will also have access that is equal distribution, quality distribution of that water, quality access of the water, good access of that water, and fair distribution and access of that water. So the same will go with energy, the same will go with the healthcare system, education system, and facility and services, so that whatever we are thinking about, whether it is road network or general infrastructure, for us to have it, we must participate. What am I saying? Is that as a human being, if you don't participate in politics, you are going to lack the good and quality access, good and quality distribution, good and quality control of the resources you necessarily require. Now, to the faith part of it, faith mainly is about belief system, our belief system. And everybody has a belief system, whether the belief system is in existence of God or non-existence of God. And in those who believe in God's existence, whether they believe in a single God existing or multiple gods who exist. And those who don't believe in that, they may not refer to it as faith or religion, but they will refer to it as worldview. They have a worldview. They have a system within which they believe that how things operate. Maybe their worldview is that world is controlled, and they believe in the science as a control system of the world, as the only system that controls the world. So that scientific aspects, and maybe that scientific aspects might be physical sciences, biological sciences, or any other form of science that they really actually believe in. So the belief system everybody has. So that when you're talking about religion, we are not just talking of the predominant religious systems or beliefs in a place, but we are talking about a system that people have belief in, that how things operate, how cultures dominate or are developed and evolve. Because we cannot have a culture that has no belief system. And because culture is a way of living, then that way of living always has a belief system, part of which is religious. And in religious belief systems, we have what we call extremes. So we have extremism in belief systems, or extremism in religious beliefs, but also we have moderations. And then we have those ones that the belief system is based on the circumstances. So I think, to me, what we need to be thinking about is the holistic understanding of a human being, so that from the onset of this session, before I answer questions and I listen to people and hear what people have to say, is that if you separate the belief system, if you separate worldview, if you separate religious beliefs or religion with politics, then what you're saying is simply you are talking about non-existent life. So for life to exist, people must have a belief system, and they must also be participating in access, control, and distribution of resources which they require for quality living. And therefore, to me, the two must always operate together.
Okay, thank you for that submission. We have someone here called Gertrude Lango. Says, how many denominations can one person belong to? If one person animates in his or her own church, no one will blame them. But going from one church to another in every Sunday and Saturday, that is not faith, that is hypocrisy. I think she's making this based on what our politicians do. Like one Sunday, you can attend 5 churches. So is it a quest for spiritual nourishment, or is it a hunting for votes? So how many faith can you subscribe to? Maybe you can weigh in on that.
Yeah, generally and ideally, people subscribe to one faith. So when it comes to religious matters and the belief system, everybody has just one worldview, one belief system. However, when it comes now politics, you are not going to lead people in your own denomination, your own religious belief or inclination. In politics, you are dealing with resources, and people in your environment will require all those resources. So if you are in a ward, that ward will have Muslims, it will have atheists, it will have uh, Buddhists, it will have Christians, it will have people who literally are African believers in African native gods and belief systems, and all of them will coexist in the same ward. If you're in a ward, the same with if you're in a constituency, in a county, or in the country as a whole. Now, because of that, the issue of democracy demands that you request each person to participate in voting, so that it's not people from one religion or one region or one locality to make a decision who will be the leader. So because of that, what will therefore happen, if you believe you can lead people in a political system, you will not just go to your own church. You will go to places where people are sober and are socially gathered. That's where you can, because you want a gathering so that you can talk to them at a go. And therefore, the places that have gatherings, those are the places you will also find that politicians who are in campaign mode or who want to talk to people in general using different social platforms will go. So in that case, you'll find people will go to funerals and churches, mainly in our society. There's also there are also gatherings in what we call, let's say, drinking joints, where people drink. But because in the drinking joints, sobriety is never the main thing, you don't find major campaign rallies. People will still go there, politicians still go there, even buy drinks for people, but they will not literally make it a rally and address them as a group, because their level of sobriety diminishes over time when they're in a drinking joint. So when you find politicians going from one church to another, it's not necessarily because they believe in all those denominations or they don't believe in all those groupings. Instead, what is happening is that they are getting platforms that have social gatherings where they can now actually address their potential voters, to agree with them, buy their own ideas, or know them, because they have to do publicity. And in return, they expect that those people will vote for them when it comes to voting time. So I don't think people going from one church to another necessarily mean, or going from one denomination, because today they will be in a church, tomorrow they're in a mosque. It does not necessarily mean that they are ascribing to all those denominations, all those churches, but they're using those as platforms of social gatherings so that they can sell themselves, they can publicize themselves, they can campaign for people to know them and buy them as an idea to be voted for when voting comes. So I think, how many denominations? At one time, it should just be one that one should ascribe to.
Let me ask you a direct question. Huh?
Yes.
You are maybe a member of one church, maybe in Busia or in Western, and then you have come here in Nairobi. You are attending one church, and then when you're given a platform to greet the congregation, you stand up and talk issues that don't resonate with people of Nairobi. So, okay, what should be the message? We don't deny that politicians don't should not be given a platform in churches, but when you are given a platform at a particular church, what should be the message? Or, for example, you're given a platform at the funeral. What should be the message? Some people have argued that it's like we go to the funeral service and we don't mourn with the bereaved because we have this agenda in us. And so you are completely off of what is happening and you're just focused on getting votes. You even talk about something that does not resonate with the local people. What's your take on that?
My two things there. One, that politicians or leaders generally have come to learn, and I'm in campaign myself because I'm campaigning, that our voters, our brothers and sisters who are not campaigning but are the expected to be voters, the general public, have a big problem. They speak something which they don't mean, and they mean what they don't say. I've gone to a funeral, and I have met the bereaved family. I've given them my support quietly. Then there comes a time they say we want our politicians to greet us. Then I'm told I will also be standing and greeting the people, which was not part of my attention, my intention. Then as I stand, I greet them and I say, we are mourning together with this family. Let's support them. And at least you have now known I'm vying for this position in this locality. However, I will be meeting you at different times so that we do our campaigns and we share what we have together. Then as I go to sit, after that brief statement, two things come out. One, the people who are holding the microphone and calling us and say, you cannot stand on this platform and go without giving us something. So they demand that by holding the microphone in a funeral, I must also be giving them some money. Remember, I've already supported the family. So I go back and say, okay, I came, I supported the family. I thought it's just a quiet thing that we usually do. They say, no, this is not a free platform. So that demand, and it looks like it's a serious issue now. And most of us now end up now giving 500 shillings, 1,000. Very few give above 3,000. Even in things you can solve. So that mindset of the electorate is a poor mindset that must be managed by themselves, because the politicians only do what is resonating with the people. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, I've also gone to a church, and I'm a member of a church. I go to a church, and then this time, because I've now declared my candidature, now the candidature declaration simply means that now I've said I have actually money to take 1, 2, 3 issues which I was not able to take before. So instead of them knowing that today is just it's a service, I'm just told to greet people and tell them that I'm vying, which I've just said I'm vying for this position, and I will actually do the campaign outside this congregation. They want me to stand there and address them with the issues of politics there. But when I do the address again, they say, but nowadays we have turned the pulpit into a political rally. So I think the first thing is that we must be honest with ourselves. Members of the public must change their mindset, and that's majority, not all, but majority have that problem. Now, when I'm standing before a congregation, or any other politician is standing before a congregation, what they say is supposed to be congruent with the leadership of the church. I've gone to churches that you are told not to speak politics, and they take away the microphone. So and the church has had that culture so much that when politicians come, they are not given a special treatment. They came to church, they will serve, and then they go. But also depending on their role in society, if these politicians are actually existing leaders, for example, is the president, is the governor, they will be told, we have a governor in our midst today if he's visiting. So we allow him to say and greet you and then sit down. And those governors, those politicians, because they know the culture of that congregation, they actually don't go astray. They stick to the scripts, they greet people, and then they leave. But where there are no controls because of poor leadership of the same church, then it is that church now leadership problem that leads to these politicians meeting the demands of the congregation, which is you must address us in political issues because you can. So it is a two-way traffic that we must agree that all of us must play their role. But because a politician only does politics when he becomes a politician, there is no way out I'll be a politician and you want me now to start teaching a mathematics lesson. So if you see a politician, they expect them to be a politician who will do politics. So if you give them a political platform where people are ready to listen to them and they're doing politics, they are doing the right thing. Because it will be very wrong for a politician to actually start doing non-politics things when they are given a platform to do politics. And therefore, if you don't want them to do politics, tell them, we know you're a politician, but this is not a platform for politics. Today is not a day for politics. Just greet us and do 1, 2, 3. They'll ascribe to it if you mean it. It is actually hypocrisy. Now that I saw that message of our viewer, it is hypocrisy to expect a politician to speak without politics. To me, that's what is hypocrisy or lack of understanding. Because If a teacher comes to class and is teaching biology or mathematics, if they fail to teach that subject during that lesson, then there's a problem. If you see a preacher who does not preach, or you give a preacher a platform, even in a funeral, and they don't say something about the scripture, if or their faith, then that preacher has a problem. So to me, you have a problem if you meet a politician who does not do politics when there's a platform to actually do politics. So let's allow politicians to do politics, because if they don't do politics, what are we expecting from them if they're actually politicians? Yeah, I don't know if I've responded well.
Because the same Bible says that you should have enough for your
Let's listen to that.
Up to the 4th generation, but by the sweat of your brow. By the sweat of your brow. Not by taking things that belong to others. What we are condemning and what Christ is condemning is that we should not use our position to acquire things that don't belong to us. And I'm submitting to us that one of the reasons why Africa and Kenya will never realize their potential is that our appetite for that which is evil has been sharpened. Waswahili wanasema kinolewacho hupata. Our appetites are so sharpened that our conscience is seared. Our conscience is numb. We can no longer tell the difference between good and evil. And because we cannot tell the difference between good and evil, we engage in good and evil on a daily basis. And that is why Isaiah says, "Woe unto you who call light day and day light." And corruption is to be found in very many places. Corruption is not only to be found in the political arena. Corruption is found even in churches today. You know, a friend of mine with whom we don't agree on many things, but we agreed on this one, once told me, the church has become so mechanical, so structured in form, that there is no space for Christ and God. And that I thought was very deep. We have structured our worship services in such a way that God is only mentioned occasionally, that God is only worshipped occasionally. And I normally sometimes ask myself, how was Christ worshiping? Christ was an itinerant preacher who engaged in dialogue on a daily basis. Christ would come and find a few people and engage them in a discourse on matters of the heaven. When he talks about the parables of the unleavened bread, when he talks about the parable of the sower, when he talks about the parables of the wheat and the tares, Christ is an itinerant preacher. He did not have a title. Today we are hankering up after titles. There is no shortage of apostles and bishops in this part of the world. Woe unto them on the day of judgment. They'll be told, we know you not. So the question is, we who are seated here, we who are Kenyans, we who know what is good and right, are we the salt of the earth or we are the light of the earth? This is the question that we must ask. What is our contribution? I'm told at one time by a friend, whether this is a true story or is an apocryphal story, I do not know. But in some airport in the Middle East, that there was a signpost saying, you can leave your goods here, there are no Christians. There is a sense in which that statement is made tongue-in-cheek, but it has a hidden meaning. I'm sure that even in this church, when you are making an altar call, the pastor finds it fitting to say, as you come for the altar call, you ladies, take care of your bags. Because even within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Within our ranks, Satan is alive and well. Every corner we turn, Satan is alive and well. Remember that temptation is always there. Even Christ himself was tempted. So that what Christ is telling us to do, he also went through. He had the agony. I keep on saying, before Golgotha, There was the agony at Gethsemane. There is no Golgotha without Gethsemane. And there is no resurrection without Gethsemane and Golgotha. So there is no triumph without temptation. It is your ability to resist temptation that defines who you are in these matters of corruption. And I know many thieves in this country. There is no shortage of thieves in Kenya. There is no shortage of thieves in parliament. They are there, and they are also good men there, but few. Recently, on national television, a member of parliament from a place called Sirisia, I do not know his name, that member of parliament, but he was asked about corruption, and he said on national television that we normally receive bribes between 10,000, 100,000 and 50,000. All of us, he said on national television. And he was asked a direct question, do you yourself receive bribes? He says, I do. And even right now, he said, there is a matter in which I'm involved, in which fellow members of parliament have asked for 56 million. And he asked the interviewer, who can refuse money except God? I'm telling him that we can refuse money, and we have. There are good men in this country. I subsequently sent an SMS to the ESCC telling, arrest this individual. I'm still waiting for the answer. Because I believe such a one as that ought not to occupy the position of leadership, but I fear that such a...
Well, I just wanted that clip to redirect it to the next discussion. Politics and money. Most people say that people seek political seats or opportunities to make money. It has been discovered that there are only two channels of making quick wealth: seeking for a political seat or opening a church. What is your take on that?
Let me start by opening a church, because the political one is the one that I want to maybe spend more time. I have enjoyed serving in various churches because of my desire to serve. And when I was a student, one thing that was very clear is that churches don't work together as much. So among the students, one of the things we used to do was that we had a department called evangelism, a department of outreach. So the outreach had where we reach out to the students amongst ourselves. We call it inreach. And then the outreach is also another department where we reach out to other societal members outside the university or college. And that's where we're reaching out. My university and college was in Nairobi. So we are reaching out, one in the environments were around Nairobi, and two outside Nairobi. Because outside Nairobi was a bit far. We had to prepare once a year to go to a specific place and make a major mission. We used to call them missions. But then the ones in Nairobi, we had a model where we could say we want to go to a specific location. Let's say we are going to Donholm. So we meet several church leaders in Donholm and tell them we want to come and share our faith here, but we want to work with all the churches, not just one church. And a few occasions in some of those incidences where we want to bring churches together, we will find that some church leaders don't even see eye to eye. And the reason was always rivalry, which is about membership and money and fame. So yes, there are churches in my interaction with the church leaders that have been opened for sole purpose of making money. And therefore, when you listen to their gospel, you listen to their way of doing things, and particularly churches, not necessarily mosques, you will feel that there's a gap, there's a challenge between what they preach and what the Bible actually declares. So that, and that's how the sermons like 310 became very famous. Yeah. And they usually do exploit the gaps that and vulnerabilities that the society has. And one of them is that people want quick wealth. Everybody from the bottom of the pyramid. So the poor people, when you tell them they will get quick wealth, they will have quick fixes of their problems, then they are willing to go any extent to get a loan, to sell one of their property, to provide the only little money they had, and give it to this man of God, in quotes in this case, so that the man of God can pray for them and they can get to heaven, or the heavenly blessings can pour down. And that's how people end up getting, you want land, you are sold some soil sample so that you take it at home and you buy land, you get land, or you go take money somewhere so that you can get, you buy a job. But that is just lack of knowledge of the scripture. Now, such churches, they are not necessarily the church found in the scripture for going to heaven and for the ideal situations. But again, the Bible is clear about such institutions existing in the last days, so that when they're existing, the Bible is not being surprised that this was not, it's out of context in the Bible. No, the Bible is aware, and it has even given a proper warning about false prophecies and prophets and such situations where people will be glorifying themselves, focusing on money instead of focusing on Christ and his people. So when people are actually seeing money being at the center stage of churches, it's because of such a group of people who have gone out to do business, because this is a business opportunity. Me, I don't blame them as much. What I blame is the people whom I will refer to as Christians in this case, and who have no time with the Bible themselves. They don't have personal time with the scripture. They don't have personal time with prayer. They don't have personal time with sharing their faith, so that they want somebody else to read on their behalf. So that level of laziness, complacency, it serves them well. And the only way we should do it is, if you want good people around you, be a good person. If you want to be a good Christian, you must practice what the Bible says. Don't practice what your church leader says, because your church leader, just like you, has their own weaknesses, own faults, and therefore they require a congregation that is believing in scripture, so that they can actually be led by the scripture itself. So that's one. But two, there's also another group of church leaders who, they started well. You know, the way the Bible talks in Galatians, who bewitched you? Yeah, they started well in faith. They were focusing on Christ, and they're focusing on the right way of doing religious activities or church activities. But along the way, the church members neglected them. But then they had to get survival tactics. So they have come up with tactics of coercion and deceit against their members or church members, so that now these people can actually be extorted. So they may not even know that they're extorting members of their churches, but now they have gotten a survival mode, because people are not giving in those churches, people are not tithing, people are not supporting different aspects of the churches. And as a result, therefore, they have come with a tactical mode in which now they know how to extort the members of their congregations and survive. Now, in both occasions, the most important thing is that participation in church activities has different levels. Level one is personal commitment to the scripture or personal commitment to religious activities at a personal level, not corporate. Corporate comes when personally you are very well committed. Then, and if you are following Quran, if you're following the Bible or any other faith that you have, you must be at a personal level committed to how you're supposed to be handling it. So that by so doing, when you go to a situation where somebody wants to exploit you, they have no room for that exploitation. Now, once that is done, then level two is that you must understand that commitment will involve your time, your physical presence, and your resources, including financial resources. Because if you are running a church and you're participating in a church activity, one of the things you should be aware about the church activities is that they will require to be funded. Now, if you're not funding those activities, then who is funding them? And when totally you don't fund them, that's how now the politicians who have money have a chance now to come and give the funds, and you cannot resist the funds because the activity has to go on. Now, when they're giving the funds, some of us against us saying that the funds have a poor origin, that money was stolen. Now, if the money, the money that is stolen and the one that's not stolen, they don't look different. So if you're given today money, if I steal money and give you, and if I genuinely work for the money and give you, you may not know the difference. And there's nowhere where it is written and where you are going to see that this is stolen, this is not stolen. So for purposes of proper arguments, I think it will be prudent for all of us to know that all religious activities require funding. Lastly, is that the people who are in charge of religious activities, these are pastors, bishops, imams, and such, a good number of them, that is all they do for a living. That's all they do for a living. Now, if you're not taking care of them, somebody else will. And that somebody else includes themselves crafting ways of survival. So in order for us to support that cause, if you believe in what that church is doing the way you started going there, then part of your involvement must be financial involvement, not through extortion, but within your means, within your convictions, within your means, not through coercion, not through deceit. Don't respond to deceit and force that you are told if you don't do this, and threats actually. Because if you don't do this, God will do this against you. No, no, no. God doesn't threaten people through servants that you must use the money or else. There are principles in the Bible that must be, or scriptures that must actually be obeyed. So to me, that's how I'll approach it in the church side. What about politics? Again, what do politicians do when they're using money? Money is required for politics because politics is a project. And in project management, whenever you are thinking of a political seat, you are thinking of a project. And for you to deliver that project, you must understand resources required and people required to deliver that project within the time frame. Now we have a project 2022 for all politicians who are going to vie in all positions, the 6 elective positions. They are running a project called 2022 elections. Now in that project 2022 elections, there are elements of that election that require financing, direct financing. For example, nominations, whether independent candidates or party, you must have some payment, whether it's 5,000 for an MCA or 250,000 for president or in between, you must have the money that is required. So the 5,000, let's say the 5,000 for MCA, if you don't have that money, you cannot say that leadership comes from God and you don't need to pay anything. It's a requirement that is actually put there by IEBC that you must pay that amount. Now, when you'll be moving around, if you'll be using a bicycle, you need to buy that bicycle. If you'll be using a motorbike, you need to buy it or you need to hire it. Then you need to have fuel. Because you'll not be alone, all the people that will be moving with you and for you will require that facilitation. So whether they are facilitating from their own pockets or from a central place where they are saying this is the campaign finance, or from any other source, but that fuel will be required. Wherever they go, when they're going to start campaign, the whole day they'll campaign, they will stop doing what they're doing so that they focus on the campaign. When they go back to their homes, their people will need to eat. So this campaign should facilitate their livelihood at that point. So if they're campaigning for me, I need to ensure I pay them so that they give time to this campaign so that I'm able to reach out to many people. Now, the other issue is that campaign will require logistics. That's what I was talking about, movement. But it will also require, let's say, an office. So the office space will require that if you are an independent candidate, for example, one of the requirements is that you must have an office in the same constituency or ward or county that will be inspected by IEBC. And that office must be functional. Now, that office most likely you're going to hire. As you hire that office, you'll be paying the rent and other related bills. You'll have staff in that office that you'll be paying. So all those things will require money. Now, the election financing, therefore, is something we must discuss. You cannot go to elections and fail to use money. But what is the source of money? How much are we talking about? For what purpose? Now, the challenge that is there today is that once you declare your candidature, then people start coming to you with their problems. And actually, they say that what have you done to people so that we can elect you? What have you done so that we can actually elect you? And it has become to a situation where now people are calling, even when I go to a funeral, that I supported somebody who had who was bereaved, or when somebody is sick and you support them in the hospital. Now, this is being considered as a project. And I think that's why, again, our netizens, our electorate, our citizens, the civilians need to come to a point of knowledge that we must agree that there are things that can only be done by public finances, so that we don't demand people who are not in office to do some type of project which they have to get money to do. If they get that money, there's no free lunch. Where if somebody gave them the money, that person requires returns. Now, this is my slogan on the same. You'll get the leader you want. If you want the leader who buys the seat, don't ask them to do the job, because they bought it. Anything bought, it must be bought with a reason, and most of the time the reason is to get returns. So when whoever buys a seat will always get the seat and now get returns from the seat. And the returns is now not to serve you. Don't demand the service once they have bought it. Now, if you want to vote for somebody, then you can also vote for somebody who may not have money to buy the seat, but they have a vision, and you tell them, we are giving you this. And there's a process in which you can understand that so-and-so has a good vision. They have a good manifesto. They actually believe in it. They understand us. And we want to propel this person to sit. And as a result, because those type of politicians are few, we also have politicians who work, and they work very well, but they're also few. Because when people have given you the seat without you buying it, you owe them an allegiance. Because if you serve them well, they will get you to next level. But if you bought the seat, what do you care? You care about the profit, because next time you need more money to buy the same seat or a higher seat. And it's on that also we must now agree that the campaign finances always supersedes the income that somebody gets from salaries that they earn from campaigns. For example, when we are talking of 4.4 billion Kenya shillings as the cap or the limit of presidential campaigns in Kenya, a president roughly earns 120 million in 5 years term. Now, that is 40 times. Yeah, that is 40 times, which means the campaign finance limit is the same salary that this person can earn for 200 years if the salary was the source of income. But because now they are going to a place where they want to make the decision of who controls, they are the one going to control the distribution of the resources of the country, what we loosely call national cake, you will find that now, instead of distributing it evenly to people so that we serve them, they will distribute it in a way that they get the returns. So that the 4.4 billion that they used or more, because they're actually saying 4.4 billion is a limiting factor, they need more. So that's why they're saying they will not even pass it. They want to get a higher, because to them, the project requires more money to do other things that they cannot account for. So what will happen is that when they come to the office, the first thing is to get those returns. And as a result, again, as constituents, as Kenyans, as people who want to be the one getting leaders, we must be deliberate and say, if we want good schools, we need people who understand schooling, who understand the value of going to school. If we need the hospitals and medication and all that supplies in our hospitals, we need people who reason straight. And I can assure you, anybody who has bought the seat will never reason straight. So campaign requires of finances because of two problems. One, too much demand from the citizens. It has forced people to use dubious means to get money so that they use for campaign, because they also need those seats. But two, we just lack ethics at all levels. At all levels, we lack ethics. So I hope I've given it some justice, but let me see if there's a question or something that requires me to clarify. But the greed is too much. If we cannot control the greed of the citizens, the next person to be elected still will be just as greedy, only that they are lacking opportunity to exploit the greed into our system.
Okay, so it's not your time to eat when you are joining politics?
Yes.
It is not your time to eat when you are joining politics, because some people run for presidency because they think it's their time to eat. Some people join those parliamentary seats because it is time for their clan to eat. That the drive to political offices?
It is a drive, but it's a wrong drive. It's a drive to very many of people who are into politics, but it's a wrong drive. The right drive should be, what is it that you want to add as a value to the society, to the team? For example, me, I'm vying, and I'm vying for an MCA seat, which most people say that I am overqualified. And I told them there is nobody who is overqualified for any seat. The truth of the matter is that if it is credentials required by IEBC to run for a seat, I qualify for all the seats available to the presidency. But then these things come with several other aspects. Qualification is not just academic. Qualification is also exposure. Qualification is the vision. Qualification is readiness. Now, in that aspect, for me, and I want to give an example of myself, I have been brought up by the society to go to school. Society took me to school all the way from primary to secondary, and even when I went to university. Now, I have seen the change in my life by being taken to school without corruption, without things being undercut anywhere. In my schooling system also, I schooled, and at some level, I schooled with the people who they only believe that there are some papers or exams they can cheat for them to perform. Now, me, I have never cheated in those exams, and I am here. And I have therefore believed that you don't need to cheat or take a shortcut to actually get somewhere, but you need to be committed, you need to be visionary, you need to be consistent. Now, as I'm vying, my interest is just to take another one person to school. And if that one person, I have 42 villages in my ward, if that one person can come from every village, that will be 42 people. So if each year we have 42 people going, I'll have 210 people. So if this has done this to me, and I've supported several people on my own volition without political ambitions at that point, I believe this can help us so that we can have a group of people who can reason together to provide a proper change in this small locality. And I'm thinking of schooling, not just going to university. Schooling is being empowered to be self-reliant. You are literate and you are self-reliant. And therefore, I'm looking at it from an impact of socioeconomics. Socially, you're empowered. Economically, you're empowered. And therefore, you become easier person to reason with and to help support several things. So that you are not thinking of just handouts, but you're thinking of self-reliance and empowering the generation behind you and the generation ahead of you. Because the older generation require us, the younger generation require us. So the majority of us who are in between here, we're supposed to come up with a system that can work for short term, medium term, and long term. So to me, if children will go to school and the schools in my locality will be empowered so that the school can actually accommodate 800 learners, 1,000 learners in boarding and day. And then we have internet access. We have all the studies, computer studies. We have artisans courses, which we can actually have them in the same locality. Then to me, I'll have achieved. If everybody who is doing business, their business is making economic sense, and they understand how economic sense is arrived at, I'll have achieved. But that cannot be done by dashing or dishing out money.
There's another question from Hezron. Hezron was trying to enter the studio to ask his question, but there was a network problem. But he has asked this. Reality, many prophets do off. You don't tithe or fungu la kumi or altar fees. You will not get God's blessings. Also, politicians stealing public money and giving them to churches. I don't know whether it's a comment or a question, but you can wave on that.
Yeah, I think let's start with the issue of tithe and fungu la kumi. These are terms that are found. Tithing is found in the Bible, and I think it's a matter of discipline. So I usually say those people who don't know how to tithe and they don't tithe, and they argue with tithing, they have a problem. But again, those who force and coerce people to tithe until they come up with the gymnastics about tithing, they also have a problem. So these two groups of problematic human beings are the ones that cause problems around giving in church. Church giving is supposed to be cheerfully done, willfully, and honestly, so that we don't end up with a situation like a biblical situation of what we call Ananias and Sapphira, where you have enough resources, but then you just take a smaller portion than what you are supposed to cheat God by making people know that you have given, but then God knows that you have not given the way you're supposed to. So do it between you and God, not between you and that servant of God. That way you will have scored, so that it doesn't matter what me as the minister of the gospel says, but what the Bible says, what your convictions are, and you do it cheerfully. But giving in church is a mandatory aspect of life, so that you fail to give different and various types of giving, and you are in a position to, you are a thief, just like the one stealing from public coffers when they have been given that office. And now thieves in churches are the ones who call ministers of gospel thieves, particularly those ministers who are stealing. So the best is that both the person who is supposed to give and the one who is supposed to receive the giving, they are supposed to know the principles of the scripture and do it accordingly. Now, for politicians steal public money for two reasons. One, because we elected people who went there to steal. And we were aware. Actually, the reason why we are crying is because we were aware that they're going to steal, and we want somebody who can steal, and we argue which is the best person to steal, the one who has more or the one who has nothing. So if we wanted not to get thieves, then from the word go, we should be interrogating their manifesto. We should understand what a manifesto is in the first place. We should interrogate those manifestos. We should then interrogate the people and how they arrived in those manifestos. Ask them the implementation strategy of those manifestos. Then look at that versus what is our expectation of the leaders who are coming. Because also when we are having a population that has no expectation, genuinely speaking, you sit with somebody and tell them, okay, when you are seeing an MCA, what are you expecting from an MCA in this coming election? What are you expecting to get from an MP? And then they have never read, and they are literate. They have never read the distinction in roles between an MCA, an MP, women rep, senator, governor, and president, to the extent that they even insist that women rep has no function. They're just eating our money for free. Senator has no function. They're just there to make noise. You see, when we start making such unfortunate comments, and yet the roles are clearly stipulated, only that maybe these roles were not given financial kitties, then it shows the poverty of understanding that we, the citizens, have. Now, that poverty is now what pushes these people to say they must have a kitty, so that people also start seeing them as if they're working. Because now to the citizens, working means dishing out money in one way or the other. And every person who has been elected as a public officer in this elective post, you find that their homes have become a place where people go to ask for money. So that whenever they're present, their homes have queues. Now, where will that? You cannot get salary is never enough. Even if you earn 100 million today per month, your salary can never sustain that type of lifestyle where people come to be given handouts. So if people want these people not to give handouts, they should not go for the handouts. But because they are always going for the handouts, whoever does not give handouts is told to be a mean person. So I think we must agree on that one. Now, he has also talked about government in Kenya need to fight corruption like late Magufuli in Tanzania. Then Kenya will use stolen money to build Kenya to stop borrowing funds for projects like Kibaki. Now, I don't think the problem is that simplistic. The problem is that every budget we have what you call public participation. In the entire process, it's called budget making process. It literally begins around August. Immediately, the budget is read in June, and the financial year begins in July. I think around August, the budget making process begins, and it goes all the way to April of the following year. Now, it begins at the grassroots, so that the budget making process, before we know how much it's going to be, we must know what is it that is going to be done in your ward. And every ward has an administrator. Yeah, like now we have what we call the village administrator in the devolution structures. The village administrator is supposed to have the village council. Now, this village, like in my ward, we have 3 village councils or 3 village administrators. Now, these village administrators, they collect views of the villages. As I said, in my ward, we have 42 villages, 42 village elders. Now, when such things is the situation, then people don't even go for village elder barazas, which are held monthly. People don't go for sub-chief or assistant chief barazas, which are held. People don't go for chiefs barazas, which are held. So when these decisions are being made at that level and you have never participated, yet something was made or a decision was still made down there, what authority do you have as a Kenyan to start saying that we are stealing the money? Because you even don't know where the money is going. You don't know how to monitor it. But if you participate, you can say, we agreed in this year that this is the project. The money was allocated. Because again, in the budget making process, we have 2 types of the budgets, if I'm not wrong. And these 2 types of budgets, if you go to the ministry, the treasury, you will come across them. One is called the development-based budget, and the other one is program-based budget. Now, you will come the development-based budget. We have around we have program-based budgets. We have around 4 volumes. You have volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, and volume 4. Yeah. So that, and these are huge documents that details. There are over 1,000 pages. Some of them they detail. They detail which program is being financed, in what area, and how much is it allocated. So then we have what we call a budget policy, which is the main one that is usually read during the budget statement. The budget policy, which is the one that comes, and out of it we also have the finance bill, which is supposed to give it life, so that it's, when finance bill is passed for that year, then we are good to go. Or annual development plan for the counties. Now, if we don't participate in making of these documents, which is usually done from the grassroots going up, then the truth of the matter is that we will continue saying that corruption. But corruption is done when people don't know where the money is supposed to go. Most of this money is never returned. So what happens is that they will do a shoddy job because you're not participating. They will report it was done. And because capacity to monitor is also very low, then the day we'll discover that the money was allocated, you discover that the project was never done, it's already too late. So corruption is done because of our greed, it's done because of our lack of participation, lack of interest to participate. But the truth of the matter is that every year the budget takes care of everything, and the views are collected from the grassroots going up. So that when you go to the treasury just makes a final fine-tuning. Then that final fine-tuning is taken to the cabinet. The cabinet goes through it. Then once that is done, then the budget is ready. It will be taken to the parliament through the parliament committees, and then the whole house. And that's how we end up having a document like that. So corruption is only exploitation of idle money, or money that is not being monitored. And who is supposed to monitor this money? At the very least, you and me. You cannot monitor what you have never seen. So to me, the issue of money and corruption is because we have allowed it to happen. But if citizens were to be honest, and we became very thorough, so that we don't leave it for one person, and we call that person an activist. If all of us were doing what we see a few of us doing, the one we have labeled as activists, there will be a lot that will be happening. So I think
Alphonse.
Yes.
Alphonse, the reason why we are marrying politics and faith, there is what we borrow from faith to practice in politics, and that is character. I think borrowing from the clip of P.L. Lumumba, he said that there's a quote where they say that when you enter in this place, don't your shoes here because they are Christians. Yeah, in other words, maybe in the earlier days, people were even employing, when you attend an interview, the first thing you are asked is your faith, the faith you are subscribed to. And most of Christians used to have an opportunity, because most people believe that they are honest people when you employ them, maybe in your farm or whatever. But in the ultra modern society, people have questionable issues to do with men of faith. So, are we still associating faith with good values and character, or where did we lose it?
Thank you. I think that's a very good point of convergence. When we expect character, I believe personally that all faiths, not just Christian faith, train people to have good character and good morals and good, they believe in humanity. Now, let me start with the Christian faith where I belong to. And in Kenya, we are told that 80 or thereabout number of percent of Kenyans are actually Christians. Now, when you study that very well, one of the things you'll find out is that people are called Christians because they don't go to mosque. They are called Christians because they don't go to temples. And they're called Christians because their first name maybe is what is considered to be Christian. But a big chunk of those people we are calling Christians don't have, in the last 1 year, maybe have never sat down with their Bible for more than 5 days and read on their own, except when they carried it and went somewhere where they're supposed to open it because somebody said the preacher saying open it. So to me, that's why I say that if you're not at a personal level a Christian, being a Christian at a corporate level becomes difficult. When I was dealing with the issue of worldview, faith, and how people just understand the issue of religion as a whole. So if you want good character, to be honest with you, you will get it in religious institutions. If you want the worst of them, because every bad person still want a good person around them. Even when they want a wife, they think of getting it, the wife or the husband or the spouse from the same place. Now, faith trains people to have good character, but unfortunately, people are not trained to have good character because they are nominal Christians. So when I said I'm a practicing Christian, I'm born again, I'm practicing. Now, these things are not supposed to be verbal. When you meet a Christian, when you meet a Muslim practicing, you will see if as a Muslim, it is time to pray, they will not start negotiating with you, whatever you are doing. They will actually go and pray. If it's a swala at dhuhr, they will wherever, even in that office, they will kneel down, they will follow the protocol of their swala and finish and then continue the other things. And they don't negotiate it. You find a Christian who is also believing in Christ, they have committed their time that they have to pray, to have to read their scripture. They actually have to fast. But when you see, and also they commit themselves, they don't get coerced, they actually commit themselves and their resources to support the ministry without even making noise out of it. So to me, faith is directly influential to character. The truth of the matter is that majority of people who proclaim faith and who don't proclaim faith have left faith in this country. So they are not men and women of faith. Even if they are called apostles, some of them, they are just in a different story. They're in a cult, they're in a business. So to them, they just associate with good name, reputation, which is how people perceive them. But they don't associate with character, how they actually are. So in that regard, is if we were to focus on character, which is the actual person, we'll get that a few people fit the bill. But if you focus on reputation, how people perceive us, then we find that a good number has tried their best to put on a good clothes so that they are visibly seen as good. So when they go to a place where people are Muslims, they actually behave and talk like Muslims. When they go to a place where people are Christians, they behave and talk like Christians. But their actual self is neither. The good thing is we know these people in our midst. There is nobody who is coming to us that we don't know when they are coming for an election. We always have a person we know. This person, we have known them since childhood. But because we also don't like right people, you will be told, and I've been told, politics don't require straightforward people. You must have some level of lying. You are told. And I ask them, but when they lie again, you start complaining. So if you know that I should not lie, but when I'm coming to you, I'm not lying, and you tell me that I cannot succeed in politics because I'm not lying, then where is the problem? Is it me who now is supposed to adjust and start lying, or you who knows that politicians should lie, and if somebody who is not lying cannot win? Because winning is your vote. So to be honest with you, there's a big difference between what we need and what we have. What we have is rotten. What we need is upright, but we are not ready for the upright. That's where the problem is, viewers and listeners. So I believe that for us to make this change, let's be honest. Let's be extremely honest that if the people we have gotten, the ones we have elected so far, I am happy with them because they reflect us. When we are told not to elect so and so, and we are saying we must elect them, then we ask ourselves, what was the reasoning behind our elections? Then you find that we are electing so and so to punish so and so that we actually elect people out more than we elect people in.
Alphonse, we
Yes.
are told that politics is a dirty game. Are you ready to be daddified?
It's not a must that I must be elected. If they don't want to elect somebody of my caliber, then whoever they elect, let that person serve them the way they will serve them. I'm not ready to compromise myself just because I want to be elected. I have been alive. This month becomes my 40th birthday in this year since my birth. I have a family that we are living modestly well. We thank God for that, and many things that I've seen happening. So I don't need. It's not a must that it is me to serve for service to happen. However, it's a must that we must be ready that the person we are going to elect will be a reflection of us. We have seen people in Igembe, they elected a student who was 23 years old. I don't think that student who was at Adia that time had money to become an MP, but he became an MP. He can either decide to use that method well or not well to ensure he serves his people or not. I've seen people who have served their electorate very well. I've seen those who have failed. So to me, I'm not ready for the dirty game. And what makes the game dirty? Because I think that's what we need to answer. What makes the game dirty?
I think what the issue is, if you are not corrupt, then this what we call smear campaign. They have to paint you corrupt. If you are not okay, in other words, they will want you to be like them. So you are either corrupt or you are painted corrupt. Are you ready for your name to be soiled? That is the question.
I am in the game, so if the game has people to soil me, let them go ahead. I can't stop them because if that's how they will win. But what I know, and I want to give example of a few elections that I've seen that were nullified, because the law is very clear. If you paint me negatively, what I am not, and as a result, I lose the vote because of that, and I have evidence, I can go to court and win that case because that is part of election malpractice. It is part of election fraud. What happened in Ugenya, the election of Ugenya that was nullified, Honorable Karani and Honorable Chieng, if you remember that election nullification, now Chieng is the MP. It was not because of anything different from what you're asking. The main reason was that in that region, it was believed that you must be supporting Raila Odinga, and therefore ODM in Siaya was the predominant force. Now, also, there was no support of William Ruto, and I'm being very blunt here. But then, people believed that because Honorable Ochieng was not in ODM, he was therefore supporting Honorable Ruto. And the smear campaign was that was attaching him to Honorable William Ruto, and therefore his loss at that specific point was because people believe that he is supporting Honorable William Ruto, and the campaign, the smear around that came. Now, when he gathered sufficient information, that is what the court used to see that Honorable Karani actually got the mileage and benefited from that smear. Not that he's the one who actually smeared him, but he was a beneficiary of the smear. And it's on that ground that therefore there was nullification of that election. And when it was nullified, Honorable Ochieng got a mileage so much that the predominant party, ODM, was not able to garner enough votes to win the by-election. And a few other by-elections that I've seen that have been nullified on the same ground, on election malpractice. So election malpractice is not just about money, it's also about the smear. So if it is able to be quantified and verified and evidence is there to confirm that, then you can be assured that the smear can also still work against the same person who has won, if the winning was on smear. But I'm aware, I'm ready, I'm prepared for the smear, if any. Good thing is that I'm making it clear of the brand I want to be known for, because I have only one brand, and I don't want to change that brand to a new brand. The brand that will serve people, the brand that will work with people, but in a manner that is sustainable. Don't know if I've responded.
Yes.
To the ESCC, telling arrest this individual. I'm still waiting for the answer. Because I believe such a one as that ought not to occupy the position of leadership, but I fear that such a one as that will be re-elected again. And when you elect such men and women to come to parliament, we can pray and fast all we want. But the last time I checked, if you elect Lucifer and his angels, there is only one thing that is going to happen: something satanic. And I'm submitting to us that indeed, as we are looking at the country today, and you watch these individuals in the 47 odd counties, these men and women, the bulk of them, are making promises to us. They are telling us they'll build bridges where there are no rivers. They'll build bridges. They are now telling us that they shall cause manna to fall from heaven. They are telling us that they shall make ice out of water and water out of ice. And they shall make fire out of ice, they are telling us. They are telling us that upon their election, our lives will change dramatically in the same way that Paul of Tarsus became Paul. They are telling us that Kenya will become El Dorado, the land of gold, on the day of their election. They are telling us. They are telling us that their manifestos contain the secrets of alchemy that will allow us to convert bronze into gold. They are telling us. They are telling us that the skyscrapers of America in New York will be transplanted and be planted in Kitui. They are telling us. Or they are telling us that all the beautiful things that are happening in Europe will, in the twinkling of an eye, invade our country and will never go back again. They are telling us. And unfortunately, we believe them. We believe that they are latter-day alchemists. We believe that they are latter-day Simon the sorcerers. We believe that they are going to part the Red Sea of our lives. We believe that they shall erect pillars of fire to separate us from latter-day pharaohs. We believe that they shall knock stones and water shall come out of them. Who betide us? Those things will not happen. Because the last time I checked, an elephant only begets an elephant. How can it therefore be that a rabbit tells me that he'll beget an elephant? How can it be that hyenas are now telling me that they shall give forth lions? It cannot happen. It will not happen. And we believe it. We are co-authors of our own misfortune. We are co-authors of our own misfortune. The Bible is so clear that thou shalt reap what thou hast sown. But what are we sowing now? I want each one of us, because corruption is not only restricted to bribes, no. Inspect your heart. In the little things that you do in your office, when your child does not have a pencil at home, do you take a pencil from the office to take it home? What do you do in private? Because we are in the business of doing that, and you don't think that that is corruption. You imagine to yourself if every worker were to take a pencil from your place of work. Those of us who love this country, which country is great in prospect, we must begin to say something. You know, whenever I've talked about corruption, I've always said that there are two ways of dealing with the corrupt in this country. To tell the king and the queens that they are naked, there are two ways of doing it. One of the ways is to be found in the synoptic gospels, and is what I call the way of John the Baptist. You go out into the agora and shout, "You Herodians, you have an illicit affair with the wife of thy brother Philip. Thou stands condemned." You say so in the agora. You will be arrested. Then there will be a dance at which Salome will dance so well. And Salome will be asked to name her prize. And Salome will name her prize as the head of John the Baptist. So if you choose to shout in the agora against corruption, you must be prepared to pay the ultimate price. How many of you are prepared? Because the last time I checked, if you've not found anything, Martin Luther King Jr. used to say, for which you are prepared to die, you have no business living. All of us must find something for which we are prepared to die. Then we are worthy of living. It is incumbent upon us as Christians and patriots to point out the evils that bedevil our country.
Yeah, one, I brought that clip to give you a commercial break. You've been talking for the last 50 minutes. Two, I also wanted us to look at a few key points he has brought out. One of the things is election campaigns. Not election campaign, campaign promises. He has brought it out very clearly. Sometimes we promise heaven and we deliver even something not next to earth, but actually hell. So what is your take on electoral promises?
Let me start by, because I have gone through the process myself, so that when I'm promising things, you need to ask yourself, what does the promise entails? So this is what we are calling manifesto in technical language, but this is what am I going to do given the chance or opportunity to serve in this role or given this responsibility. So when you are going there, you must ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to do, it must be, one, in line with the needs of the people on the ground, and two, within the mandate of the role you are asking for. So if you are promising people what an MP is supposed to be doing, and yet you are going for an MCA seat, then definitely you are going to flop, even if you are given everything you require to do your job. And three, it also entails the understanding of the political landscape. That is, relationship between your office that you're vying for and the other offices that facilitate your office to function. For example, if you are in an office that does not have finances, then you might require to work with offices that give finances, because if you don't know how the collaborative power works, then you can become extremely abrasive and fail to deliver. So it's a mix, it's a matrix of several things. Now, most people in their campaigns and their campaigns manifestos have promised what people want to hear. And they promise what people want to hear because people want to hear very many good things. Yeah, and most of those good things are actually short-term things, and they are also unrealistic. And that's how we flop. So the temptation, and I think that's where the issue of mud comes in. The temptation to tell people many things that you cannot deliver is usually very high. For example, me, I tell people that I want you to tell me what I want us to do, because to me, I wanted to approach it from a place where I hear from them. But I also tell them, I have one agenda that I want you to support. And my agenda is that we partner together to take our children to school. And to school here means people must have class 8 completion rate being very high. We must go to the next level of those who are making it to Form 4 must make it, and the completion rates must be very high. Those who are not making it to Form 1 must go to technical training institutions and have a skill. And these institutions exist, and they've been there over almost 70 plus years now. So they must be able to work. So we must take them there. And lastly, we must also nurture talents, so that we are not just looking at academia and technical skills, but also do we have other skills that are not necessarily technical, but let's say sports, that we're able to nurture, and the talent-based skills or sources of livelihoods. So I think, to me, we must manage if you want to be a good leader, manage the temptation to overpromise. My all-time approach has been under-promise, over-deliver. I have told them, don't ask me many things. When we go there, when we are evaluating, ask me, did our children go to school? Did we improve our school status? Yeah, did our schools have increased and improved situation? Ask me about schooling. Then I want you to add me 3 others in addition to schooling, so that the 3 others now are yours, that I'm supposed to guide you, and we partner together. And they have told me the issue of health, and we need to improve on health in my locality now. We are having a health facility, a dispensary that must be sorted out, and we have another one that's existing already that we must now ensure it is well stocked, it has doctors and such. So that's the one they have added me. They have added me another one, which is economic empowerment. Now, in economic empowerment, we have agriculture-based, we have trade-based, the businesses that are done in the market. Yeah. And the last one, they want self-reliance. Now, on the self-reliance, I've said, which is still, again, economic in nature, I've said that I will be looking into 2 things. One, self-reliance on people who have actually gone to school, and self-reliance on people who have not gone to school, and therefore their jobs and the things they do might be more of hands-on, technical, and manual-based type of work, so that we are looking at how to best to do. And I told them, if you give me more than this, there's nothing I'm going to deliver. So let's focus on this. But I know very well that while we are doing that, I'm going to focus very much on the feeder roads. My people have a problem with electricity to some of the schools. So electricity, and some of it is quite less than 500,000, and we are sorting that problem. We have problems like security, and we just need to have a police post somewhere, and that just needs me to go and mobilize the required personnel, and be able to get a police post in 2-3 areas in my locality. And then we have bridges. We have around 6 bridges that require to, because some learners are actually crossing over, and it is dangerous during the rainy seasons. and periods, and also the traders use the same bridges and require the same bridges to go and do their business or buy things from the other side of the river. So those are things that they have shared with me that I'm going to add in addition to the 4 things that I'm focusing on. And how am I going to deliver? There are things that we actually can deliver even without moving all the way to waiting for government. Because some of these things, we have NGOs that when we write proposals and through organizations of the locals, then we can do that. So first phase that I've already done is that currently we have a variety of registered self-help groups, community-based organizations that I have facilitated. So some of my colleagues are actually coming and thinking they are getting it, they are working with them. But to me, I've told those community self-help groups and the community-based organizations that you must be registered for you to benefit from some of these processes. Now, I'm also going ahead and now training some of the members who have gone to school how to write proposals, so that literally I'm their patron or their leader or their consultant, so that they know how to write those proposals. I want them to be reliant on themselves, so that whether I win or I lose, and they are able to do things on their own. Because my problem is, if they will depend on me, I will not have achieved. I want them to depend on themselves. So when we are making campaign promises, there are critical things of those promises that you must be able to deliver. And those are the ones you should be making, focusing on. And that's why promising stadia in 6 months or in 3 months and failing to deliver, it rings in people that this government told us they will give us a stadium after 3 months. And it is now several years, we don't have the stadium. Yeah, they told us it will be free secondary education. We are still being asked a lot of thousands of money to pay for our children to go to school. And even though they are paying, but you see now the packaging became very poor. Yeah. So even though there is some subsidy, but it was never well packaged. Or if you wanted it to win an election, when you won the election, you could have repackaged the same story so that people now readjust their mindset. But what did we do? We actually promised, yes, we promised things, and we promised to win. We don't promise to deliver. And when we win, we have achieved. But then we forget that the people we are talking to are supposed to follow through and then help us get it. So we do it. The campaigns promises are done from a hill. The best way to do it is get to the people, get to know their problems from them, not the ones you perceive, even if you live among them. Then develop your agenda from that, and then have a team to help you follow through in implementation.
Thank you. Your explanation is tempting me to ask you something to do with bottom up, but I will not for now. Let me ask you a question related to that. The author of the clip said that we, the voters, are the author of our own misfortunes. We elect Lucifer and his angels and expect sound results. How should a voter determine that Alphonse is not a conflicting angel, but a real? Okay, how will voters determine that Alphonse is not just a wolf in the sheep's mask, but okay, I think you can respond to that. I don't know how to put it, but I think you understand it.
How should a voter identify genuine candidates from the ones masquerading to be genuine, but they are fake? So the idea here is that vote people that you know. Like when I'm now vying in a place that I have schooled there, I have grown up there. I've schooled from class 1 to class 8 there. Fortunately, I also went from Form 1 to Form 4 there as a day scholar. I have married around there. My wife don't come from far from there. And my childhood is barely known there, as in it is bare, it's known, fully known there. If I come to Nairobi, I have to explain my childhood, my growing up. But there, I don't explain anything. They know me. So if you know somebody, you can tell the story of this person, the consistencies that are there. So that's number one. Elect people you have been so much conversant with, not somebody that you are newly to and then you get excited about. That's number one way of identifying genuine people. Because if you grant all of them and you know all of them, you can eliminate several. Number two, when you are electing also, have a team that has structures, societal structures. For example, when I go to a village, now that village has needs. Now, that village should be able to tell us what they need, and then we should be able to respond to them. So the village will prepare a forum for people not to be going there frequently, but a forum that people will come to this village and will ask a question, so that the village has their own panelists. And in that panel, therefore, whether myself directly or indirectly, we are able to explain ourselves, and they should be convinced. And they make a decision collectively that as a village, this is the direction we are taking. So that if the village can be making such directions, it will eliminate a situation where we are going to divide and rule them. But what we usually do is that the village itself don't have a vision. They don't have a common direction they want to take. So we will easily go and divide them by the level of greed. So to me, people should be organized at that level, so that when politicians are coming, politicians are not the ones who are coming to organize you, but they find you organized, so that through your organization, and that's why I told you, for me, them being in smaller groups, so that we have CBOs, and a CBO is in a village, so that CBO determines what that village requires. So that in that CBO, therefore, they can have leadership that has people who have gone to school from that village, people who are elderly from that village, males and females from that village, and therefore they can come up with what is common for this village to thrive in the next 1 or 5 years. So people get organized by themselves, form cooperatives, form welfare groups, so that in these groups you have common challenges they want to be addressed, because all challenges will not be addressed. Then listen to these people coming to address you, and from there you're able to deliver a sound direction that say, if you can't deliver A, B, C, D, we can't go with you. That way also you'll have a majority of people voting in one basket, and therefore the scatter not being there. Lastly,
thank you.
Lastly, just the last one. When people want good politicians, please insist on issues away from funerals and away from church or religious group fundraisers. Don't use the funerals and fundraisers as a determinant. Don't use money, availability of money as a determinant. When you eliminate money from your process of evaluating the candidates, you are likely to get the right candidates.
Yeah, thank you so much. Esron is still complimenting you. He says, Alphonse, you look like a very honest person for leadership. I wish you all the best in your MCA position. I hope voters can see that. We appreciate for that compliment. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, the next question is, have you ever been pushed to a corner by your competitors to do something you did not intend to do? Before you answer that question, just watch this clip.
Mwambie pole, hangefika leo kwa sababu he has a lot of other commitments. Amenipatia pesa yake nikuletea kusaidia matanga. Amesema mkawane na ndugu yako Jacob katikati shilingi 1,100.
Ningependa pia kupeana salamu na mchango na pole ya Musalia Mudavadi ambaye amenituma hapa. Amenipatia shilingi 1,100 niletee Mheshimiwa Tali. Jambo la pili, amesema pole sana. Jambo la pili, vile pia mimi kama seneta wenyu nitapatia kanisa shilingi 10,000. Nitapatia pia band shilingi 10,000. Na pia mimi kwa niaba ya Musalia Mudavadi Wananchi ambaye mko hapa, niko na lunch yenu, mtaniona tukitoka. Sasa inafaa huyo Khalwale ajue kwamba pesa ya huko Sugoi haiwezi tushtua. Hata sisi tuko na pesa yetu, tutatumia pesa yetu, hatutaenda huko kuombaomba vile yeye anaenda kuombaomba kule. Sasa msikuwe na wasiwasi, we are under control. Everybody, mtu yote amekaa hapa paka aende nyumbani na lunch. We have capacity ba. Sasa niseme nisiseme? Niongee nisiongee? Bas, ninyi ndio mmenipatia sauti. And I want to tell all Luhya leaders, wale viongozi ambao.
Wow. Yeah, you see, someone has given his contribution, and then you also give your contribution, but you have to do something extra to show that you are the best candidate. Have you ever been in such a fix where you are forced to go extra mile just in order to please your electorate? You see what has happened. He was forced to give a donation to the church, then to the band, then everybody else was included in the matrix.
Yeah, I have been forced. I've encountered this once recently, actually, in this month of July. This July-August season. The good thing is that, and my competitor was the one controlling the process, because it was in a funeral like this, like the one I've seen there. So what happened is, me, I had supported the funeral quietly and everything, and very well and seriously, so seriously, because I believed in these people. I knew they needed my support, and I gave them as I could. Now, when this opportunity came and we were to introduce ourselves, me, I introduced myself without any cash, and I left. And the MC was very furious that I cannot just take the microphone and leave without money. Of course, my competitor also, who was there, also felt that, and they voiced it out. So I went back to take the microphone. And they refused to give me the microphone. But because my electorate are people that believe in me, and I've done a lot of grassroots campaign where I go home to home. I talk to people in their home states. I meet them at a personal level. When we go to the market, we meet in smaller groups of 5, 10. We don't meet more than 10 people. So when people are in the funeral, the people insisted that I must be given the microphone. So I was given, and I told them, you know me as I've grown up here, and I'm being taught this new type of politics. But as I shared with you earlier, in my own capacity, that I don't do this so that I show off. You had the leadership of the home and church, when they were acknowledging some people, my name was mentioned. So I don't want to go into this type of politics, because you want leadership here. You don't want to show off. So let us finish with the people who have brought you 1,000. Let's not deny them the 1,000 opportunity, but we are standing with the home. And therefore, I will not do anything different, because I don't want you to elect me because I was under pressure. You need a leader who makes a decision and stands by it. And when you agree, he stands and defends the position. And that is me. And that's why I will not do anything different from what I had done, and different from what you have known me to be doing. And I left the stage, and people clapped. Though we had a few occasions where a few members who had not known me actually felt I would have just given money instead of talking. But you see, I talked and left. Then now my campaign team followed me later on, and now told me that because this and this is a new development, this will be our new strategy going forward. But at least, and at the instance of that situation, we were able to manage that very well. And as a result, also, it has given us more publicity. Now we have changed the tact of managing, so that we don't have such situations arising, particularly for people who have not encountered us before. We have come up with a new strategy. I may not necessarily announce it here because it's a public forum, and my competitors might steal on it. But we are mending every small loophole that we are coming across. But we are steadfast in my campaign, and I think, to me, I'm happy with my campaign team, because in every funeral, whether I'm in person or they have represented me, in every social gathering, in every church, we have stuck to our plan, but we always evaluate our successes and manage or improve on our weaknesses as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Bishop Margaret Wanjiro, nimerudi kwa uwanja, ninaania kiti cha gavana wa Nairobi. Sisi kama kanisa, ningependa kuwasihi kanisa tusikae mbali safari hii na siasa ya Kenya. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. It is time for Nairobi to rejoice, and it is time for Kenya to rejoice.
Yeah, what do you understand by when the righteous are in authority?
Righteous people are people who are both doing the right thing in the right way, at the right time, to the right in the right manner. But biblically, there are also people who follow principles of the scripture and believe in God and His ways. Now, these are some of the reasons why people really have a problem with the dichotomy between church and politics. It's because sometimes we use our authority in church to mislead the public. So to me, the righteous being in authority simply means the right people who do the right thing, having the positions of power and authority. And people who do the right thing are people who they are men and women who are following specific principles, who are honest, and who are direct. So that when they tell you, I will give you, they mean it. I will not give you, they mean it. I don't have, they mean it. So that they understand life is real. So that whenever you go to them, they will not cheat you because they want to make you happy. But they will tell you the situation as it is at that point. When you are wrong, they tell you today you are wrong. When you are not wrong, they'll tell you I'm wrong, but you are right, and such things. So to me, that's what it will mean to me.
Okay, so in other words, it should not be interpreted that when the righteous in the authority doesn't mean when somebody with the name John or James is in authority, or a believer in authority, because that is where some people have a limit. As long as they know Alphonse is a Christian, that one is righteous in authority. Or I know my fellow brother Muslim is fine. Now that is the righteous in authority.
Yeah, righteous is character. Christian is a tag. Muslim is a tag. So I think righteous is a character. So men and women who have good character, men and women of good character. So it's not necessarily being called a bishop, then you become righteous, or being Alphonse, then you become righteous. Being a Christian, then you become righteous. Because we can assume you're a Christian, but the truth of the matter is that we referred, as I said earlier, you are a Christian, a nominal Christian, a Christian because you are not a Muslim, for example, yeah, or a Muslim because you go to the mosque, not because you follow Islamic principles, yeah. So to me, righteousness is character, yeah. The other tags,
okay, yeah.
The other tags like Christian, Muslim, to me, those ones are just tags. They may not be a reflection of your character sometimes. And it has happened to be a good number of times we have seen that people who have those tags are not necessarily men and women of character. Yep.
Yeah, I'm still rotating around this term because it is one challenging many people. When we were in high school and learning about tools for agriculture, we were told that use the right tool for the right purpose. Can we also say that when we talk about righteous in authority, you simply means putting the right person in the right position?
Correct. What we are talking about here is, of course, the right here starts at the top with the character. And let me talk of interview, because you see, unlike other jobs, political jobs, you are elected. but the principles of getting a job or being given a job are the same, whether there are jobs that are somebody is elected, or we are selected, you're elected, you're appointed, or you're just interviewed and then you still get appointment. So the principles are the same, and these are the principles that 3 things are of importance. 1, we are looking at your knowledge level. Do you have the knowledge that matches the requirements of this job? Because if you don't have knowledge to the requirement of the job, you are likely to underperform. 2 is the skill. Is your skill set matching the necessary skill set required for the job? And 3 is your conduct or behavior. Is your behavior, is your conduct, is your mannerisms matching the conduct of a person holding that job or that office? Now, with that in mind, we must also be aware, and this is a bit technical, and I'm borrowing from human resource and labor technicalities, is that 40%, a maximum of 40% is your skill or your skill set and your knowledge. But your behavior, your conduct, your mannerisms constitutes 60% at least. So then number 2, you can be trained on the skills if you don't have them. You can also be trained to have the knowledge if you are lacking or if you have less. But your behavior cannot be trained while at work. So if you came with wrong behavior, wrong notion, wrong conduct, wrong perceptions, then that cannot be trained. So if you must get somebody, because you'll rarely hire a perfect candidate, then the candidate to be hired should be a candidate with the right attitude. This is usually the term used to refer to mannerisms, conduct, ethics, and such. So you should hire somebody with the right attitude, then train them on the skill if they're missing it, or train them on the knowledge if they're missing it, or knowledge and skill. Because knowledge and skill constitutes 40%, attitude constitutes 60%, at least 60%. And then knowledge and skill constitute at most 40%. So yes, let's get
thank you so much.
Yes, let's get the right people, and the right people here are people who have the right attitude to the job.
Yeah, I think our viewers, you have got it right. When we talk about the righteous in authority, it does not limit to somebody of your denomination or your practice of faith, but actually the person who is the right person for the job, who has the competence and the credentials needed for that work. For example, if you just take someone because he's a believer but has no knowledge of the job, when he fails or she fails, don't blame God for that. It is your choice of not getting the right candidate that made maybe the project to fail. The next question, Alphonse, will be the strategy or are believers supposed to campaign for their candidates who are aspiring for offices, or theirs is the place of prayer? They only need to pray for people who are campaigning or are occupying offices of leadership.
This is how I'll respond to that question, is that economic problems are solved economically. Social problems are solved socially. Political problems are also solved politically. Spiritual problems are solved spiritually. So when you have finished praying, praying is good and you must. When you have finished praying, then remember that when God created Adam, he placed him in the Garden of Eden. Then he told him, now name the animals. Now, God does not name the animals he has given you to name. So if you keep quiet, no animal will have a name. So once he has given you into politics, so there's a way in which politics are handled. So handle politics in a political way. So one way is you don't get a job by praying. If the job requires interview, you prepare for the interview. If the job requires application, then you apply. If you're shortlisted, then you go for the interview. But this type of job, it requires campaign. So you must campaign. So campaign does not replace prayers and does not dilute prayers. Continue praying. But now, since it's a political job that requires campaign, prepare for campaign and campaign thoroughly and fully, not as a replacement of prayer. I hope I've answered that.
Thank you so much. I think it's well answered. I think the other part we wanted to delve in is let me just share this clip and then we can respond to that, as I also give you a moment to sip your water.
Our grandfathers worshipped idols, Terah, Nahor. And when you came into the land of the Amorites, you also found their gods. Choose you now, whether you shall worship the God of your fathers across the river, or the God of the Amorites in whose lands you live. As for me and my house, I shall worship the Lord. That question is an eternal question. We must make a choice. The choices are not easy, but I know men and women who have made those choices. Stephen, the first Christian to be martyred, made such a choice. The question is, you who are here today, what choices are you making today? Are you making the difficult choice of doing that which is right and good because it is just good to do that which is right and good? Are you enticed by the latter-day things that we see on a daily basis? Because I know that I have many friends who have helicopters. But the beauty of it, that when the helicopter flies, it must stop, comes down. I know many friends who have cars such as Lamborghini and Porsche and Mercedes-Benz. But the last time I checked, the Mercedes-Benz stops and he gets out of it and gets into his house of gold and goes into his bed of gold. But even in the bed of gold, there is no sleep. He has to induce sleep by using tablets, and even then sleep refuses to come. I know many friends who can afford all the good food in the world, caviar and all the good meat, but their appetite since disappeared. They've got to eat things to induce appetite, and even when they induce it, it does not come. But I know other friends who are not so materially endowed, or they don't need soup to sharpen their appetite. No. They were born ready. You bring forth the food and they consume it. They don't need it. I know poor friends who do not have beds of gold, but even when they sleep on the floor, they sleep soundly for 8 hours. And they don't have nightmares, they have sweet dreams which they have forgotten in the morning. I know friends who have nothing, they have no television, they only play drafts, and they enjoy it so thoroughly. They don't take out an insurance, no they don't. God is their insurance. And there is a way in which the God that we worship has a way of turning all these things in a positive way. And that is why I look forward to the day when we shall have in leadership men and women who love this country. I remember an old man with whom I had the privilege of working for a short time, former president of Tanzania, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. On the day that he left office, after 24 years in office, it is reported he had only 8,000 equivalent of United States dollars in his account. That is just about the amount that our MCA uses over a weekend. Mwalimu Nyerere, after 24 years, that is all he had. With a single house in Dar es Salaam and another one in Butiama, our MCAs and our governors within 4 years have 80 and 40 houses. And if you look at them, they have expanded so exponentially that even suits can no longer fit some of them. If you look at them, they are even running away. Has it ever occurred to you that our leaders are running away from something? They are running away from themselves. When they go to the barber shop, the first thing they ask for, a man, dye my hair that it may not be white. If God divinely said that when you grow old, your hair turns gray, why are you running away from your age? And when you have men and women who are running away from themselves, from their appearance, how truthful can they be to us? They are little things, but they have something to tell us. I'm submitting to us that time has come, that we must remember that this country will only realize their potential the day that good men and women have the opportunity to serve. The Bible that we read has numerous stories telling us of how the people enjoyed when good men and women were in authority, and how they suffered when evil men were in authority. This country that I live in, that I love, has great potential. But potential is only potential. We have sinned and fallen short of the glory of both God and man. We must repent and be of contrite hearts. And our repentance must be total and complete, because the God that we worship cannot be mocked. He knows in advance whether our hearts are contrite or not. So today, if we are liberating ourselves from the 7 deadly sins, let us ask, and Mkoigi Mwere, who is a friend of mine and who is a Kenyan who has been wavering recently between 2 opinions, has written a beautiful book called Towards Genocide in Kenya, The Curse of Negative.
Yeah, I think the clip ended prematurely, but he was bringing out the issue to do with, there are 2 issues that I want you to respond to. First, he began with the gods of Amorites. God told the Israel not to worship the gods of Amorites, that their forefathers used to do that. And maybe if to relate it in our political arena, our politics is balkanized and gerrymandered with tribal or clanism kind of politics. I don't know if you have already identified the gods of your fathers that you need to worship to get into power. Maybe is there a clan sponsoring you? Is there a political base that you need to say that this is what I'm clinging on or relying on to get to power? The next question will be relating to your wealth. That we see Alphonse entering in a political arena just maybe with a few cash in the account, but just in 5 months, 5 years, we see you flying in helicopters, and you have already bought mansions. Is that what you're planning to do, or your heart is sold out to the service to humanity? Kindly respond to those 2 questions.
Okay, thank you. These are things. The good thing is that when you live a normal life, questions become easier to respond to them. For example, let me start with the issue of wealth creation through politics. I'm one of the privileged Kenyans because I've had a chance to earn more than what I'm going to earn if I was to get the MCA seat today. So if it is earning that was a motivation, then both my consultancy work and my former employment, I think there have been a better places to be, because there's a better earning there. In consultancy, there's a better earning. There's a better earning in where I was working. I used to work for a multinational, and I had a portfolio for 5 countries. So I think, having said that, I'm aware of tenderpreneurs. Now, if tenderpreneuring was also another thing I wanted, as recent as this year in June, I turned down a business, which was paying me very handsomely in millions, just because of shortcuts that I was to follow, and I didn't want to follow, and I was given the chance to follow the shortcuts. I didn't follow. So if it's what I wanted, I think I'm currently in a better position even to be a faceless human being and earn a living way better through those shortcuts, and even take from public offers, because since I run businesses, it's easier to get there, and my business can earn in that direction. So it's not wealth creation that is moving me. I rarely even buy clothes. It's my wife who tells me when we should buy clothes, and most of the time she'll actually be the one who will buy for me. And she feels now the one I'm having, it's gone past its time. So what is my driver in that case? In that case, the genuine truth is that I'm not driven by how much I want to make. In fact, one of the things I've been doing is to ensure that people who depend on me have what they depend on, not me. So that if it's my family, assuming I was not there, how can they live without me? So that if that is achieved, then I feel I've achieved. Now, the other issue is that I want to just be available for society. I'm interested in being empty when I go to the grave. Now, being empty when I go to the grave means that I don't need to focus on creating wealth for me to earn, because after all, I will still go and live it. But what do I contain? What do I have? What do I carry? That if I give to somebody today, then tomorrow life will be better for that person and another one. And I think I've been supporting learners, people going to school, as I'm making that as my main agenda. And I think one of the satisfaction, one has come when I've seen people complete school, but 2, when they are now self-reliant. 3, now as I continue supporting people, I've seen those ones that I supported, the first group that I started supporting, like this year when Form 1s were going, some of them also took a child to school. Yet they are not even married, they are not even having children, but now they are sponsoring. They have, somebody has taken a child to school Form 1, they have paid everything, they've done shopping. And I'm just thinking, if I didn't take this guy to school, if I didn't support them to finish what they were doing, what will they be doing today? So to me, that becomes a major satisfaction. So wealth to me is people empowered, and when we collectively come together, I'm believing that that is going to make a major change in my society. I've given myself 10 years as a period of time within which I expect a lot to change, and this a lot is I'm anticipating to have between 500 and 1,000 members of my ward who will have been impacted by finishing school, doing something on their own. And we can, if I called them for a meeting and we said we want to take 300 people to school, we will gladly take 300 learners to school without an external force. And that's what I'm looking into, that in the next 10 years, I have that force of 1,000 people who can actually raise money, and we build a classroom. The same day, we go to a school in the locality and say this school requires an additional classroom. We raise money for that classroom, and we live with that money, being present, so that the following week they can have attendance for whoever they want to build the classroom. That's what I'm looking into as my focus, not necessarily that wealth is money in my account. Now, the other issue is the tribal politics, the strongholds, what is my stronghold and such things. I think one thing is that I'm vying. One of the things people have not even asked me is what is your clan? People have not asked me even the issue of clanism and such. And I think it's because of my approach. I have not approached people from a platform of I have not approached this from a place where we are. Sorry for that mishap. I'm saying I've not approached my political journey from a point of where mobilizing people is I use the clan, I use the gender. I've approached people from my practice, and my practice is labor. Now, in labor, what I was taught is that labor is not a thing; it is human beings. Now, for you to organize labor, when we were studying organizing labor or organized labor, for example, trade unions is part of organized labor, is that labor is not organized sustainably on other issues except on things that are common to these people as workers. So that when you're looking at them as workers, one of the things you're looking at is what are their common challenges. So if the common challenge is we need a good medical facility in the area, then you rally them around us having it, a medical facility, having good education facilities, having good markets for our produce. So if these are the things to me I'm selling to people. Now, I'm not selling to them in a rally. I'm selling them in smaller groups. Now, what has happened is now these smaller groups have now moved along to sell the idea to others. So that now, in fact, I am certain by now I'm the safest of the candidates my constituents have, because they believe I am looking at things as things that affect my people as people, not organizing people through clans and through people who are this side of the river, the other side of the river, this sublocation, the other sublocation. I'm looking at them as my people. Yeah, and I think so far it has worked for me. It is my belief that it will work. It is my focus that it must work. It is my way of doing it. And so far, so good. So I don't have the Amorites, Amalekites, and such group of people, but instead I have this one unifying factor. What are our issues? And it is working so far so well for me.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you in terms of social strata.
Just a minute.
You see,
just a minute.
Okay.
There's something I saw that was projected on the screen.
Oh yeah, just to respond to it.
And it was talking about, I've talked about knowledge, skill set, conduct, and behavior, and I've forgotten about integrity, accountability, and ethics. Now, let me repeat that, just a quick one, that there are only three. Number one is knowledge. Number two is skill set. And number three is what we call attitude. Now, knowledge is what you know. Yeah. And most of the time we use knowledge, when we want to assess knowledge, we use certificates, academic certificates. Yeah. Then number two, when you talk of skill set, is what you can do. Some of it you might have acquired through learning, like doctors leave their classes when they can actually treat. But others is through your interaction with life. You have done it so much, you have seen it done, and you have done it so that you, even though you have never gone to a formal training, but you can do it. So what you can do with your brain, with your hands, with a skill set you have. Then number three is attitude. Now, attitude is what we have in how you respond to things, the how. Yeah, so the mannerisms you have, which you are calling behavior or the conduct or ethics, is part of the attitude. Now, accountability and integrity. Integrity comes from that integer. Integer means whole, and or whole number. So, holistically, if all these three are done well, then we say that you have integrity. Integrity is the wholesomeness, not part of you and the other part is not working. So, still, integrity is not those three things combined. Now, accountability is if you can actually explain why and what and why you are doing what you are doing and in the way you are doing it. So I think when you talk of knowledge, skill set, and attitude, we have actually, and the three of them combined is the integrity or the integer, we have actually encompassed all the things. And that's what usually is done. This is technical a bit because it's people are trained who are doing HR, they are trained on these issues. And whenever you are going for job interview, these are the three things that are looked for. And the most important one is actually the conduct, the behavior, the attitude, because the attitude cannot be trained at the workplace. But the knowledge can be trained if you have a shortage of it. You can go back to school. Skill set, you can be trained on a new job if you didn't know about it. But how you behave, how you respond, how you... if you're a thief and you're coming, we cannot say that we hire a thief and then we train you how to not to become a thief. Yeah, or you are dishonest, then you come to become honest. No. So we hire attitude and then we train knowledge, we train skill, and we help you acquire the knowledge.
Okay, thank you for that substantive contribution. I was asking about the social stratas you meet in the society when you are campaigning, in terms of the population, the demographic, different demographic sections that you meet. One, there are people whose campaign is based on youth versus old. I think it may be that it's your platform. You use the youth as a strategy to win the vote. Do you believe in that, in balkanization or segmentation of the population in order to get a chunk of votes? The second question will be about how we are socialized. This also affects our faith. There are people who have issues to do with, as my faith limits me, maybe to look votes from this clique of people. Maybe I don't associate with the drunkards. Maybe I don't associate with the prostitutes. Maybe how do you, okay, where is your limit when you're looking for votes?
Okay, let me start with the last part. On the limits, and we are looking at this. I'm a Christian, so do I go to Muslims to ask for votes? Do I go to drunkards to ask for votes? Do I go to prostitutes to ask for votes? Now, there's no vote for a prostitute. There's no vote for a drunkard. So, from my labor practice, one of the things is that deal with everybody as a human being. That's the first thing. And since I believe in it 100%, that has been my approach. It has informed everything I do. Everybody is a human being. That's the fundamental truth. And therefore, when you're looking for a vote, you're not looking for a vote for a group of people and not the other group. However, so before I go to however, the issue is, once you have known that you are dealing with human beings, then there's a minimum that applies to everybody across board. So apply it to everybody. But then people also have those classes, the social classes or the economic classes or socioeconomic. So those classes or the social strata, they are very important. For example, if you go to people who are elderly, there's a way they are approached. There's a language they understand. There's a language they want you to use. There's a mannerism they expect from you. So if I go to the elderly people and I am not dressed in a particular pattern, and when I'm talking to them, I'm not in a specific posture, and these are males in that society, then they will find that to be disrespectful. Now, they also, in their own way of doing things, they're not used to being mingled with young people in the same forum. If they're discussing what they consider to be serious, they're not used to being mingling with women in the same forum. And there's also, is it true with the women? It's also true with the young people. It is true with those who have gone to school, how they view themselves when handling some discussions, and those who have not gone to school. And going to school here may mean having a degree, having a diploma and above. It's also true for those who believe that they are downtrodden. They have never gone to school, they don't have money, they are poor. They also don't have the comfort of expression when they are with those people they consider rich, they consider older, they consider better than them. Now, having known that very well, and I need the best from each group, I use that to meet them. So that when I'm meeting people, I meet people who can express themselves freely among themselves. So what I will do is I tell them, I want to meet 20 people, but I want 10. So that the first 10 groups that I'm meeting, they have organized themselves. So by default, they will tend to organize people that can express themselves in the same group. So if I go and tell young people that if I meet 5 young people and I tell them I want to meet people, I don't tell them I want to meet young people. I want to meet people in our constituency here, and I need 10 people tomorrow, 10 people next day, the other day I need 10 people. Now, when they are going to organize, by default, they will just bring 10 people within that social stratum. Most of the time, it's either that gender, that age group, or that locality. That if it's the same different ages, then they're in the same locality, the same village. So it has become easier for me to address those issues. But in terms of deliverables, they also have expectations that are different. For example, older people want to know how you can ease their burden of children going to school, them feeding their children, having a sustainable income. Now, for younger people, they want to know how they can get employed, how they can get a job, how they can finish college. Now, for women, they want to know how they can start their sustainable groups so that whenever they want to borrow money, those groups are working. They can get engaged and economically be empowered so that they don't need to borrow every money from their husbands. So whenever I'm meeting them, since I've grouped ideas in relation to the groups, so whenever I meet them, I am able to know what to share with the group that I'm meeting, whether the group is a village that has a combined strata, or it's young people, or it's older people, or it's educated people. So and since I personally am in a position to manage all of them, I have interacted with all the social classes in my life by now. So I'm able to mingle with them, and having come from that level and I've grown socially upward very well. So I find it very easy with my social skills to just interact with the group that I have at that point. So
okay, thank you. So saying that elect me because I'm a youth is not an agenda.
No, that should not be the case, and it is a wrong thing. If you do that, that's very wrong. Being a youth should not be a reason to be elected. We have young people who are very bogus. We have young people who are very good. We have older people who cannot lead. We have older people who are very wise and can lead. We have educated people who are very good in leadership. We have educated people who have nothing to offer in leadership.
Thank you so much. I think that is well answered. I want us to do, we have like 1-2 issues to go, then we call it a day.
Maybe there's a question.
I want you to listen.
Can we?
You have seen a question somewhere?
Yes. Somebody says, Alphonse, what do you stand for the most in your politics, e.g., human rights, labor practice issues, youth unemployment, education, women rights, etc. My number one agenda in my politics in this season is education. And all those things that they're talking about, they are part of education. Because people get trained on various aspects of them, is education. But when you're talking of labor practice issues, labor is human beings. So we're talking of human beings practice issues, the things that human beings practice. Yeah, so labor is not a thing. It's not employment. Labor is not employment. It's not a thing. It is human beings. And usually human beings in the productive age, 12 years to 70. Then the rest of the human beings depend on that age group. I want to stop at that at the moment, but at least I wanted just to give that response. My main thing is education at this point in time.
Okay, thank you so much. Allow me to share this clip you watch, and then we respond to this issue. It affects many Christians when it comes to choice of leadership. And I think you can have your input on the same.
Says
kwa habari ya taifa la Kenya,
about the nation of Kenya,
kwamba
that
wamwalike
Kenyans should invite Ruto,
wampokee,
should accept or receive,
wampokee Ruto kwenye nafasi ya uraisi,
should welcome, accept and receive Ruto in the presidential position,
kwa sababu
because
kuna mambo mengi yanazuia asionekane kama mtu anayetakiwa kupewa hiyo nafasi.
Because there are so many things that are hiding and hindering him and make him seen as if he's not supposed to get that position.
So wakimchagua,
so if you give him that position,
watafanya jambo litakalo wafanyia mema.
You will do something that will bring goodness to you.
Kwa sababu niliona shetani anaitafuta nchi hii aingize kwenye ushetani.
Because I saw the devil searching for this nation so as to put it under his influence.
Kwa njia ya nafasi hiyo kuuzwa kwa mtu anayemwabudu shetani.
And that position to be sold out to someone who worships the devil.
Niko Tanzania lakini nasema ili muamini, kwa sababu siko kwenye nchi yenu.
I'm in Tanzania, but I'm saying so that you can believe, because I'm not in your country.
Mjue Mungu Elohim anawapenda.
So that you can know God Elohim loves you.
Mungu mwenye enzi.
God on the throne of all the throne.
Anawapenda wa Kenya.
Loves Kenyans.
Na ni muhimu sana mkasikia neno hili.
And it is very important for you to hear this word.
Mnatakiwa kutubu.
You are supposed to repent.
Mmepewa neema ambayo hata Watanzania tunaitamani.
You have been given a grace that even us Tanzanians we desire.
Mna mtu mmoja wa Mungu.
You have one man of God
ambaye Mungu alinionyesha.
that God showed me
hata
in a vision.
Tanzania tunamtamani.
Even in Tanzania we desire for this man.
Manabii wetu hata Tanzania wengi wanasema mambo hawawaambii watubu.
Even our prophets in Tanzania, they say things but don't tell people to repent.
Mungu asilimia zote.
But there is somebody who has the image of God. You have not listened to him.
Mumsikilize mtu huyu.
You are supposed to listen to this man.
Mabaya yanakuja kwenye nchi yenu.
Because evil will befall your country.
Mara nyingi
because
sana.
He has spoken so many times. And you have not heard.
Sikiliza.
Listen.
Mna nabii mkubwa wa Mungu wa kweli.
You have a very great prophet of God
Tanzania,
who is true.
hata kama hawamjui wanamtamani.
Even if Tanzanians do not know him, they desire him.
Mtu anayesimama mbele za Mungu aliye hai.
A person who stands before the living God.
Mtu ambaye ametengwa kwa ajili ya utakatifu.
A person who is separated for holiness.
Na mkono wa Mungu wenye nguvu.
By the mighty hand of God.
Anaitwa mighty prophet.
He is called the mighty prophet.
Mnatakiwa msikilize. Bwana alikuwa anambia Kenya ni wamsikilize mtu huyu.
You are supposed to listen to him. God was telling me to tell Kenyans to listen to this man and they will be safe.
Hata ukifumba masikio kwa wengine, msikilize tu mtu huyu, utakuwa salama Mkenya.
Even if you put off your ears for others, listen to this man and you will be safe. As you are leading to the general election in 2022.
Aya 2022 hiyo
2022.
Mwenye masikio na yasikie hayo.
Whoever has ears, let him listen and hear to this.
Ruto.
Welcome Ruto.
Shetani anatafuta enzi yenu.
The devil has been searching for your country.
Shetani anatafuta enzi ya nchi.
The devil is searching for the throne in your country.
Mungu awasaidie taifa mlilobarikiwa sana.
May God help you, blessed nation.
Taifa la Kristo, Ukristo wenu umezidi.
The Christian nation and your Christianity is high.
Afrika Mashariki.
In East Africa.
Nyinyi ni watu ambao wengi ni Wakristo.
Most of you are Christians.
Na waambieni Mungu anaangalia taifa hilo kwa namna ya tofauti.
And I'm telling you, God is looking for that nation in
Yeah, I think the last aspect that is coming out strongly here is autocracy and democracy. Does God really impose a leader on a nation? And then two, how accurate are prophetic pronouncements in terms of choosing political leaders? I also wanted to ask, in a democratic society where people elect leaders, does do God play a role in terms of election? Or okay, let me put it this way. Does God dictate to you who to choose as your leader? I think you can respond to that. I will ask two more questions on that topic and then we proceed.
Now, let me respond that firmly as a Christian. What God does in a democracy is He provides an opportunity for you to make a choice. The last time He chose for us is He chose for human being a wife. And when man had messed up by not following His instructions in the Garden of Eden, that is Adam and Eve, Adam told God that it is this woman you gave me. So since then, God does not make a choice that now He chooses this and imposes such a leadership or an issue to you. But He will always make it clear to you that you have a choice to make. Now, A good example is when human beings were confronted by a situation to choose, and they didn't want the Son of God, Jesus Christ. So what happened is that God gave them an alternative. So instead of imposing Jesus Christ on them, they now had a choice who to crucify between Barabbas and Jesus, the thief and the savior. And when people decided to crucify the savior and save the thief, God did not intervene. He did not change that decision. Why? Because he wants us to learn at that moment, but it does not change his purpose for us. So that even when Jesus was being crucified, it was not making him surprised. He's not surprised that we are choosing to crucify Jesus instead of crucifying the thief. But instead, he knows that crucifying Jesus will be used now for our redemption. In the same manner, there's no time God is going to give us a political leader and says it must be Alphonse. But every time when Alphonse is rising in a political situation, he will give us Alphonse and Wekesa. And then he will want us to make a choice. So if Alphonse was the chosen leader, who was supposed to lead, then the lesson that is supposed to learn from Alphonse's leadership is that if you choose Wekesa, you will miss them and start crying about them. So you start crying about them, then he will not remove the pain. Wekesa will lead entirely, so that you have a history to refer to, and that's why Hitler, Idi Amin, and such people have existed in history, and they have created a history that we learn from, unless we still don't want to learn because our hearts are still always difficult to learn. So God does not impose, and he will not impose any political leader to any nation anytime in our generation because of that. Now, having listened to this, it's also very clear that some people don't know what a prophecy is, and therefore they make some very misleading pronouncements, making them look like a prophecy. This is a campaign. This is not a prophecy. This is the clip we have listened to is campaign for Ruto, which is no problem. To me, there's no problem for him campaigning for Ruto. The problem is him masquerading the campaign to mean a prophecy. The problem is maybe people who believe in him and follow him also thinking that what he's saying is God saying it. But this is a pure campaign. If you come to my campaign team today, Wekesa, you will have to talk to people knowing that I'm the only choice they have to make. I was recently telling people that, by the way, you have a variety of choices to make. I'm one of those choices. Now, very few of us tell people that way. Most of us tell people that I'm the most suitable person you must choose now, but we don't tell them why am I the most suitable. So, to me, this is a campaigner for a candidate, and his candidate is what he's making it look like it is God who is ordaining that. So, for those who don't believe in his candidate, the candidate of his candidate should proceed to the next candidate. I have no problem with that, and that's how it should be. But him masquerading as if that is a prophecy, that is entirely wrong.
Okay, I thank you. I was even fearing to ask you direct because I didn't know your political stand. Maybe it could affect your political affiliation. But I think you have answered it candidly. Now, I just wanted to say that I think Kenyans need to know them as opinion leaders. You know, spiritual leaders are opinion leaders, just as media people, just as academicians, just as our local leaders. And so when somebody is campaigning or when somebody is looking for votes, he uses all opinion leaders to persuade the masses. He knows that when I use spiritual leaders, there are a number of voters that he will address because they passionately or they are loyal followers to that person. When he uses media people, he knows he will be captured in the all streams of media. When he uses, for example, when Raila uses somebody like SK Macharia, he knows he has a privilege over media. So we also have seen politicians use academicians, what we call the political analysts. Not every political analyst actually may tell you the truth, but sometimes their opinion, because we respect them, we hold them high in the society rank, so we will tend to believe what they are analyzing. Also the local leaders, our chiefs, our sub-chiefs, our village elders, and whatever. They are opinion leaders and opinion shapers. So politicians identify that and they capitalize on that. So if you don't double click what you are hearing, you may think this is what God is speaking, but in simple terms, somebody is on a campaign trail. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask you on that concerning the prophecy, I think there was something he pronounced. It looks like if you don't choose this leader, then something will happen to a nation. What is the role of fear in campaign and the choice of leaders? Because I know campaigns are coming, and most of the time there are many things that come in form of fear. You'll be told maybe this there is rumors of war, there are rumors you will be evicted. Okay, what is the role of fear in a campaign? And as Christians or as believers, what does the Bible tell us in terms of fear? How do we respond to fear mongering?
Yeah, let me start with the last part. The Bible talks about fear not. Do not fear. Do not be dismayed. Do not be afraid. So fear should not be part of what occupies your system in making decisions and making a move. So that's how the Bible puts it, and it's very clear. Do not fear, fear not. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. So that's what the Bible says. The role of fear in politics, I think what I want to do is to say, what is fear? Anytime you hear the word fear, and this may not be grammar, but this is the actual issue. When you hear somebody saying, I fear, what they mean is that I don't know about it. I don't know it. I have no knowledge. I have no skill around it. I have no knowledge about it. So that when you tell me today, Mr. Wekesa, that you fear swimming because you will drown, what you are telling me is that you don't know how to swim. So when you hear somebody saying, I fear swimming, because you cannot fear swimming if you already know how to swim. You can only say, I don't like swimming, but you know. But once you see somebody who fears swimming, they don't know how to swim. And most of the time they fear swimming because they will drown. Yeah, and they get scared when somebody goes to swim and they wonder, hey, how come you are just confident about it? Yeah, so fear generally is lack of knowledge. So if you fear to eat snails, it's because you have never eaten snails. And in your culture, you have not been introduced to snail eating, like me. Yeah, or eating snakes. You know, there are places you go in this world and people are eating snakes. And you're wondering what is happening with these guys. Yeah, they're eating snails. I'm talking of things that even if you hear about your system shudders. But here is another situation about fear. So that whenever you hear I fear, it means you have never been introduced to what you are fearing. You have no knowledge about it. You have literally, you are out of it. So you have never been in a situation where you have an experience with what you are being told or what you are telling us that you fear. So having put that into that context, then what is the role of fear mongering in politics and political campaigns? Fear mongering in political campaigns is to deter people from dire consequences when they make a decision to elect a specific candidate. And usually it's because they have no information about that candidate. They have no experience about that candidate. So, and then they don't know the value of voting. So if we were to manage fear in our electoral processes, the first thing that must be done, and it is lawful, it is constitutional, it's supposed to be done, it has never been done, is to invest in civic education. The public is supposed to be well educated in various aspects of our political life and life cycle, so that you understand why vote, why join a political party, why participate in political party activities, why fund a political party, why actually support a specific candidate. Yeah. So to me, the fear is usually just to deter people from voting a person or a candidate. Now, there are two things that fear delivers. If it delivers, there are two things it can deliver. One, it just delivers people to vote another candidate altogether in fear of that person that they were told not to vote. So that they vote, that's called a protest vote. They vote in protest. And I think in normal conversations with as Kenyans after 2017 elections, we have candidates that we have heard people say that those who have voted not in, but they were voting somebody else out. For example, in Kiambu gubernatorial race, Kiambu people did not vote Babayao in, but he won. They voted Kabogo out. The same with Nairobi. Nairobians did not vote Sonko in from our conversations again as Kenyans, but Nairobians voted Kidero out. Now, that aspect, and I think even in presidential elections, from the same conversations, a bigger chunk has said, we voted Raila out. They did not necessarily vote Uhuruto in. And if you look at the presidential campaigns, for example, because now Kenyans can relate to this, whether it was on Google or other search engines, on social media, specifically Facebook and Instagram, and also on the main media, the campaign was to make us fear candidature of Raila and Kalonzo more than it was to make us like the candidature of Uhuruto. That is the campaign that on social media, and I'm talking of the pro-Jubilee campaigns. And even now, as we speak, the campaigns against Deputy President Ruto, most of it is actually anchored on fear, why we should not vote him, why we should fear voting Ruto. So that if it succeeds, we will be voting Ruto out instead of voting whoever will be voting in if we don't vote Ruto. So to me, I see fear is usually to deter us from voting a specific candidate in. And it delivers in two ways, as I've explained. I hope I'm okay, unless there's a question.
Maybe the last question on that clip is, I think there's some information which Kenyans need to know. Always, most people take statistics to impose a particular stand on Kenya, which is not true. It is true that Christians are majority in Kenya, but Kenya is not a Christian nation. I think you need to comment on that in terms of our own law and our position in our constitution, so that we don't just project things that don't exist.
Yeah, I think you are right, but let me put it in proper context. Now that, as I said, I'm a practicing Christian, I'm a believer, I'm born again. Now, the actual number of Christians who can die for Christianity, can live for Christianity, are much lower than the number of Muslims. But Christianity has a majority sympathizers. People who sympathize and feel to identify with Christianity are a majority. So on that note, therefore, we are right to say that we have majority Christians in Kenya than the rest of the groups. But in practice, Muslims might be higher than the Christians.
Do you know what they base on when they do that statistics? They take anybody with the name John, anybody with the name James, anybody that has such a name is a Christian. And so when you do statistics,
actually the basis is actually the census, because in the census there's also a question on religion. So majority of people identify their religion as Christianity. Now, the last census we had was in 2019, and that still remained the same. That case still remained the same, that there are more Christians than the rest of the religious groups combined. So therefore, on that note, statistically, they are right to say we are more Christians. Now, the state of Kenya is not a Christian nation. The state is not a Christian state. So as a result, what we have in our policies, in our constitution, in our laws, are laws that cut across. They are not religious-based laws. It's on that ground that even Christians had a problem when we had Catholic courts, because they say Catholic courts will be courts that are based on religion. So then we also need other courts that will be based on religion and handle Christians alone. When we were now dealing with the issue of courts, because I was part of the people I was still a student at that time, but I was part of the people who are participating in the constitution making, and particularly when we were doing the debates around the country. So that was very clear that that issue really bothered the Christians, because how can a Christian now be taken to a Catholic court simply because it is also involved with a Muslim in a dispute? Yeah, and why should you have a court specifically for Muslims when you also have other religion in the group, and this nation is not a religious nation? So Kenya is not a religious country, is not a religious state, or is not the state and the religion are different and separate, and therefore that is the fact. So anybody who thinks that we're a Christian nation, that is misleading. Christians will just have to fight for the space like any other person, but not based on the ground that they're Christians, but based on other grounds like academics or education where they're required, knowledge, skills, and experience where such are required, or just political skill sets that will help them climb the political ladder than their counterparts, but not on a ground of being Christians.
Thank you so much. Let me put the last clip as you prepare for your parting shots.
Back today, we live in such a country which, if God were to judge us correctly, ought not to exist on the face of the earth. It ought to have received the treatment of Sodom and Gomorrah. But the only beauty in Kenya is that God has found 50 people. That is the only reason why God still preserved this country. But his patience is running out. Our cup of iniquity is getting filled by the day, and we do not know it. How is it getting filled by the day? On a daily basis, we are becoming a country where greed is celebrated. We give men and women opportunity to serve, and they steal from us. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our health services. They acquire expired drugs, and women die, and children die. We are accusing Adolf Hitler of Holocaust. That is Holocaust of another kind. We are giving men and women the opportunity to preside over our transport department. They take the money, compromise the quality of our roads, and men and women die on those roads. And then we say that that is not genocide. It is genocide. And those men claim to be Christians. We give men and women the opportunity to preside over our counties. And our nurses are on strike for 1 month. And our doctors are on strike for 1 month. And not the president, not the opposition leader, not any member of parliament talks about it. And we celebrate them because of our ethnicity. You, the Kikuyu, say, Modowa Nyuba. You, the Luo, say, Oduadu. And you, the Kamba, say, Osa Vinyamo Kamba. How can a country run that way? How can a country run that way? And we claim to be Christians, and we are so corrupt. We are destroying the next generation. And that is why James, in the book that was read at chapter 5, verses 1 to 8, tells and warns them that you oppressors, the gold and silver that you have acquired shall corrode. All these things that you have acquired that make you feel important, it is nothing. The great Alexander the Great, who had conquered half the known world before the birth of Christ, at his deathbed, instructed the doctors to prepare a coffin with his hands outstretched, that it may be known to the world that you came with nothing and you go with nothing. And he asked that the pallbearers be his doctors to tell the world that when death cometh, even the doctors cannot stop it. Yet in our vanity, we believe that when we acquire things, then we are immunizing ourselves from something. The last time I checked, greed is like drinking salty water. The more you drink, the more you want, but your thirst will never be sated. We have individuals in our communities, including ourselves, who engage in graft and corruption either wittingly or unwittingly, but most of it is wittingly. And we celebrate these individuals. In Kenya today, when I look at the men and women in the opposition, when I look at men and women in government, and I remember that not so long ago I had the advantage of working in an organization that investigated them. I'm bound by the oath of secrecy, but I can generally say, I look at them and say, God save Kenya. God save Kenya. These are the individuals who will save Kenya. These are the individuals, the pharaohs who have acquired the garbs of Moses, cheating us that they are Moses and they are pharaohs in disguise. God save Kenya. The tragedy is that the Kenyans either do not know or do not care. But I suspect that they know, and they have simply chosen to do what was described by the prophet Isaiah. They have eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. They have a form of Christianity, and Christianity has only become a fig leaf with which we hide our moral nakedness. We must interrogate our Christianity, because if it were true that being Christians immunize us from greed, then this country would be one of the countries with the least corruption in the world. It cannot be right that we are 80% Christian, we claim, and we are one of the most corrupt nations in Africa and on earth. This corruption that is alive and well in us. It is alive and well in us.
Okay, I think that sums up what we have been talking about. And for me, just one statement. They say that charisma can take you to the top, but it's only character that can keep you there. So I hope, Alphonse, in your concluding remarks, you will persuade us to live beyond our titles as Christians and go out and live our values, and let us be the true letter that Paul wrote, and say that we are being a letter that is being read by the whole world. Kindly, you can give your final submission.
Yeah, first, I want to just say that it has been a very enjoyable moment to learn and just to hear questions. But number one, in my conclusion, is that we can never avoid politics. if you avoid politics, it is the politics that, for example, for Christians, politics will one day decide that Christianity is illegal in this country, and that will remain a fact. So you cannot change it at that point. So if you don't participate, they can say Christianity should be scrapped off. And when they make that a law and it passes, that is it. So don't ignore political activities, engagements, and leadership at the expense in exchange of being a religious human being. That is a very dangerous play that will not add value to you at all, and it has a long-lasting consequences. And since you're on earth, I believe that we can do something, and that something is participate actively and deliberately in politics at all levels, financing politics, participating, joining political parties and participating in their activities, and then voting, vying for political posts where you can. Number two, I also want to submit to all of us that we are in the age and era of internet and information. Don't wait to be taught. Most of us, more than 3 in every 5 Kenyans can read well and write, and therefore we are properly literate. So as a result, please use your gadgets, smartphones, laptops, and desktops. Go online and just search for some of these documents and read. Spend some time and read. Don't be lazy and then you want somebody else to bear the burden of your laziness. Number 3, I want to say that I have personally felt that it's my time to vie, and not to try to win, but I'm vying so that we win. So as a result, what I expect from all of you as Kenyans and as patriotic citizens, be an active participant in Kenyan politics. Don't lay back. The world has become what it is because of the poor leadership that we have. And the poor leadership has been achieved in political sphere because of the good people who don't vote and who don't participate in politics. So participate in politics to make things change. Now, I must say, because I'm a bit radical, and so there's somebody whom I'm seeing something on the screen who says that religion is the root cause of all the problems on earth. Those are some of the problems I have, because when you buy ideas that you don't understand, it's very, very wrong. I personally am way ahead of majority of people that I've interacted with, way ahead of them. And I've been so much religious. Yeah, so when you don't know the difference between being ignorant and being religious, because people who are ignorant, they bring problems, and then we assume that, that they are religious. Yeah, religion has structures, their way of doing things, and all part of the world, religion has ruled everywhere. Different religions for that matter. So I don't think religion itself is a problem. Problem is us not being men and women of knowledge. We don't interact with knowledge. We accept, we become complacent, we joke around. Yeah, so please learn to read. If you're a Christian, read the Bible properly on your own. Muslim, read the Quran on your own, and other materials. Yeah, so that you're able to interact with people. So I don't want to diverge much in that, because I was making my conclusions, is that I personally want to say that kindly and firmly put God first, and put God first on a serious note. Not your pastor, not your religious leader. Have a personal interaction with your God. Yeah, because the only person who a few times I've met and I think they feel they don't have a God are those who believe that they believe in science. Personally, I've never done theology. I usually say that I've done sciences, pure sciences. Yeah, so much that I am a scientist. However, even in the situations of science, I have never reached a point where there is a divergence from God. So let's be honest with ourselves, but above all, let's accommodate everybody else. We can do our politics and succeed without labeling people negatively so much that we can't live together again. Maintain cohesion, maintain unity, maintain peace, even in our diversity of opinion and diversity of political persuasions. Thank you very much. and pray for people like me, support people like me. I need support. So if you are willing to support me in any way, strategically, financially, and or physically or materially, please just you can reach out, and then we'll be able to connect and see. But I'm going for the seat of MCA. I'm not trying it out. I'm going for it. And with my people and with good work with people, I know we will get it. Thank you very much.
Amen. In my final submission, I want to say that since we are doing politics and faith, I want to get my submission from the book of Judges, chapter 9, and verse 8 to 15. The New International Version says, verse 8, one day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, be our king. But the olive tree answered, should I give up my oil, by which both gods and human beings are honored, to hold sway over the trees? Verse 10. Next the tree said to the fig tree, come and be our king. But the fig tree replied, should I give up my fruit, so good and sweet, to hold sway over the trees? Verse 12. Then the tree said to the vine, come and be our king. Verse 13. But the vine answered, should I give up my wine, which cheers both gods and humans, to hold sway over the trees? Verse 14. Finally, all trees said to the thorn bush, come and be our king. Then verse 15, the thorn bush said to the trees, if you really want to anoint me king over you, come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, then let fire come out of the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon. It's believed that this story is told in the background of Israel allowing King Abimelech to be the king over them. For those who have read the history of King Abimelech, he was one of the worst kings that Israel had. But this story is meant to give us a background of how King Abimelech came to power. It's like there were several good people who never took that opportunity. That's why the Bible is in parables is telling us about the victory, is telling us about the vine, and it's also telling us about the thorn bush. The trees which were good and honored found no reason to take up leadership over other trees in the forest, because they thought that they need to the victory needed to protect its fruit, the vine needs to protect its wine, and so on and so on. But the thorn bush is the only one that was available to take up leadership. So what am I driving at? They say that the problem with the society is that evil and wickedness increase when good people choose to do nothing. There are those people who will say politics is dirty game. Yes, but they hold the sanitizer. They hold the sanctifying anointing oil to create. They hold the torch that should light up the world. They hold the salt that should be adding flavor to the world. But guess what? They have chosen to enjoy their comfort zone. They have seen politics as a lot of, it's costly. And so they have decided they don't want to pay the price. They just want to be good people, enjoy their comfort zone, and that is it. But it requires a heart of sacrifice. It requires a commitment. It requires passion. It requires a lot of engagement for you to help the society scale to the other level. There is the world we see as it is, and there is the world that we aspire to be. This world we aspire to be can only happen, can only exist when everybody chooses to exploit their potential and live a fulfilled life. Thank you so much, Brother Alphonse, for coming in the studio. You have helped us to shed light because we have many young Kenyans who are young and old, Christians, Muslims, or those who practice faith, but who maybe because of the parochial society have been told that faith and politics don't mix. So if you are a practicing Christian, you don't have to be involved in politics. We also believe that the word of God has not given us examples of people, has not failed to give us examples of people who practiced faith and also practiced leadership. The first person is the king of Salem. We are told the person that Abraham gave tithe to, that is king of Salem, was both a king and a priest. And therefore, it means he practiced faith and he also practiced leadership in the society. David is the only man who was allowed to touch the Ark of Covenant of the Levites, yet he was not from the Levitical priesthood. That means he was allowed to be both a king and a priest. So having said that, the Bible calls us that we are a kingdom of royal priesthood. So that means we are able to influence both the leadership and the spiritual aspect of this world. So have a good time. I think Alphonse will find time also to come on this channel. We discuss different things, but we major so much on shaping our politics of the country. We want to demystify the fact that politics is a reservoir of a particular clique people in the society, but it is for all of us. We can only turn it from empty politics to substantive issues that are able to improve the livelihood of all Kenyans. Otherwise, have a wonderful Sunday. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Nice time.
Wait, don't leave first.